Chapter 1148. The middle-aged man heard all the discussions around him. When he saw that Chu Fengyan still hadn't replied, a hint of impatience appeared in his eyes. "Kid, didn't you hear? Hurry up. It's your honor to work for the fourth prince. How dare you hesitate? Zhai Hao, there's no need to talk nonsense with him. Bring him over." The fourth prince shouted coldly and said to the middle-aged man, "Zhai Hao." When Zhai Hao heard the fourth prince's order, his eyes flashed coldly. He looked at Chu Fengyan and suddenly attacked. "As a member of the Dragon Clan, how dare you disobey the fourth prince's order? I'll take you down and hand you over to the fourth prince for interrogation." Zhai Hao suddenly attacked. He clawed at Chu Fengyan. The claw turned into a dragon's claw in the air and swept towards Chu Fengyan. The tyrannical power was about to capture Chu Fengyan. The strength of the Dragon Clan was one of the top existences among the Monster Clan. They were almost invincible in the same realm. Even Chao Yang and a White Eagle could only retreat under this claw. However, just as the claw was about to hit Chu Fengyan suddenly roared. Scram! With this roar, endless dragon's might appeared behind Chu Fengyan. Zhai Hao's face was filled with horror under this dragon's might. The dragon's claw was shattered by a dragon's roar before it could touch Chu Fengyan's body. At the same time, Zhai Hao felt an unparalleled majesty. It was a majesty that made him tremble and dare not resist. He had never felt such fear even when he was facing the fourth prince. Bam! When Zhai Hao's body came into contact with the Tianlong 8 melodies, he was immediately sent flying. His body had suffered a great blow and was on the verge of shattering. He was lying on the ground on the verge of death. Seeing this scene, the surrounding martialists were shocked. Although they had seen the battle between Chu Fengyan and Chao Yang, they still found it hard to believe what they were seeing. Zhai Hao's strength was stronger than Chao Yang's. If Zhai Hao fought with Chao Yang, he would have at least a 70% chance of winning. However, Zhai Hao couldn't even touch Chu Fengyan. He was defeated by Chu Fengyan's dragon roar and didn't even have the ability to fight back, especially since Chu Fengyan was only at the Heaven's Mandate realm, which was 2 levels lower than Zhai Hao's. This was too shocking. They had never heard of such a thing. Tianlong 8 tones? How did this person obtain the secret technique of our dragon tribe? When the fiend gods of the divine dragon empire saw this scene, their eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Chu Fengyan's dragon roar was executed by the 8 Tianlong notes, a supreme secret technique of the dragon race. Even for them, they had only heard of it. They didn't even have the qualifications to learn it. However, Chu Fengyan could actually use it. Furthermore, Chu Fengyan's dragon might was dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than theirs. This represented the nobility of one's bloodline. Very good. Your name is Chu Fengyan, right? Given your bloodline, you should be the descendant of some prince. Your strength is pretty good. Come over and serve this prince. After obtaining the treasure of the heaven-devouring beast, this prince will reward you handsomely. The fourth prince stared at Chu Fengyan and suddenly laughed loudly. It is your honor to serve this prince. Now, open your heart and kneel down to serve this prince. Are you an idiot? Suddenly, a voice rang out, causing the smile on the fourth prince's face to freeze. What did you say? The fourth prince was stunned. Serve you? You're not qualified. Scram, Chu Fengyan said coldly. No one had ever been qualified to ask Chu Fengyan to serve them. Besides, the fourth prince was nothing but an ant in Chu Fengyan's eyes. His bloodline was nothing but trash in Chu Fengyan's eyes. It was even weaker than the Battle Dragon bloodline, yet he dared to ask Chu Fengyan to serve him. The fourth prince had been acting all high and mighty since the beginning. Chu Fengyan had just defeated Zhai Hao to make an example out of him. However, it seemed like the fourth prince still did not understand the situation. Chu Fengyan could not be blamed for showing no mercy. Lowly commoner, what did you say? You dare to speak to the fourth prince like that? Even if your father is a prince, you will still have to kneel down. Otherwise, your family will be buried with you. Before the fourth prince could react, a beast god of the dragon race next to him suddenly called out. However, before he could finish, a cry of agony was heard all of a sudden. A claw of the battle dragon swept forward and crushed the dragon god ancestor that had just spoken. There was no suspense at all. The fourth prince's expression suddenly turned incomparably sinister as he looked at the blood mist filling the air. Lowly commoner, to think that you dared to kill this prince's people. It looks like you are tired of living. The tyrant prince, kill this person. The fourth prince's expression turned incomparably sinister. As a prince of the divine dragon empire, he held an aloof position. He had never taken Chu Fumian seriously. In the fourth prince's opinion, Chu Fumian serving him was already a great favor. Now, Chu Fumian's refusal angered the fourth prince. Right now, the fourth prince no longer cared about anything. All he wanted was to kill Chu Fumian. Yes, the tyrant prince said coldly as he stepped forward and stared at Chu Fumian. We are both of the dragon race. This prince disdains to make a move. Kneel down now and beg for the fourth prince's forgiveness. Although I don't know which prince's descendant you are, no one can protect you after offending the fourth prince, no matter how strong your faction is. What a joke. An insignificant quasi-emperor who just advanced to emperor dares to be impudent before me? Chu Fumian guffawed when he heard the tyrant prince's words. This tyrant prince had just advanced to quasi-emperor. Although he was of the dragon race and had a noble bloodline, his strength was only about the same as Ho Sha's. Since Chu Fumian could easily kill Ho Sha, he naturally did not take him seriously. Even if the tyrant prince and the Wei prince attacked together, Chu Fumian would not fear them. Junior, how arrogant! When the tyrant prince heard Chu Fumian's words, he was enraged. The dragon race did not have a good temper. Suddenly, the tyrant prince's body swelled up, turning into a 3-kilometer-long dragon. Dragon roars rang out. Horrifying energy gathered on the tyrant prince's claws and bombarded Chu Fumian. Heaven's End of the Origin Dragon. The tyrant prince before Chu Fumian did not possess an ordinary dragon race bloodline. Instead, he was an origin dragon, an outstanding member of the dragon race bloodline. When the two dragon claws attacked, the surrounding space shook. However, Chu Fumian did not panic. With a thought, the battle dragon claws slowly materialized. Chapter 1149. The power of the ancient war dragon's bloodline slowly condensed above Chu Fumian's head, and a war dragon claw appeared. The moment the war dragon claw was condensed, it suddenly moved and blasted through the air, colliding with the tyrant prince's Empyrean destruction dragon. War dragon's power? This person's bloodline is actually the noblest war dragon's bloodline? How is this possible? The people from the Divine Dragon Empire were horrified when they saw the War Dragon Claw condensing. They knew what the power represented. The War Dragon's bloodline was the noblest bloodline in the dragon race, aside from the bloodline of the primogenitor Tianlong. What origin dragon, ancestral dragon, golden dragon, and even the number 1 bloodline, Tianlong? None of them were as noble as the War Dragon's bloodline. However, the ancient war dragon had already disappeared during the ancient era. Therefore, in the current legends, Tianlong was the number 1 bloodline. The fourth prince had inherited Tianlong's bloodline, which was why he had such a high status in the Divine Dragon Empire. But now, Chu Fumian's bloodline was even nobler than his. The bloodline of an unknown minor character was even nobler than the bloodline of the Divine Dragon Empire's fourth prince. Jealousy involuntarily flashed in the fourth prince's eyes. Tyrant prince, kill this person. I want to devour his bloodline. The fourth prince roared furiously. He wished he could kill Chu Fumian right now. In his opinion, Chu Fumian's status wasn't worthy of such a noble bloodline. The tyrant prince recovered from his shock when he heard the fourth prince's roar. His gaze was as cold as before. I never expected you to possess the war dragon's bloodline. Unfortunately, you're too arrogant. So what if your bloodline is stronger than mine? Your cultivation is still too low. The Emperor realm isn't something your bloodline can surpass. The tyrant prince stared at Chu Fumian and said coldly, Today, this prince will kill you and extract your bloodline to give to the fourth prince. Only the noble fourth prince is qualified to possess the war dragon's bloodline. It's a waste to give it to you. Heavenly dance of the primogeniture. Kill. Judging from the Overlord Prince's burning dragon scales, it was obvious that the Overlord Prince's essence was burning. After seeing the battle dragon bloodline in Chu Fengyan's body, the Overlord Prince had made up his mind to kill Chu Fengyan at all costs. As long as he could kill Chu Fengyan, he could make up for all his losses. Under the burning of his origin source, the Conqueror Prince's strength increased by several folds. The terrifying spiritual energy forced the surrounding warriors to retreat. Many of them couldn't retreat in time and were sent flying. The desperate means of a quasi-emperor were extremely terrifying. As the two dragon claws descended, they sealed off the space around Chu Fengyan, making it impossible for Chu Fengyan to escape. However, Chu Fengyan had never planned to escape. It's useless. One move is enough to defeat you. Chu Fengyan's expression was as calm as usual. However, the battle dragon claw above his head began to change at that instant. The power of 9,999 formations was activated. It caused the war dragon claw to transform in the air. In an instant, its power was pushed to the limit. Sky-ripping claw. The dragon claw above Chu Fengyan's head swept across the sky and executed the sky-ripping claw. The sky was torn apart and the space was torn apart. Countless spatial turbulence gushed out. The spatial turbulence was enough to pose a great threat to immortal realm experts. Countless warriors scrambled to retreat to avoid the aftershock of the claw. At the same time, the sky-ripping claw locked onto the Conqueror Prince's figure in the spatial turbulence. His two dragon claws were mercilessly destroyed. Following a miserable shriek, the Conqueror Prince's hands were shattered. Ow, how is this possible? The Conqueror Prince's eyes were wide open, as if he couldn't believe what had just happened. He was a quasi-emperor, but he couldn't even fight back under the power of the claw. A wave of fear filled the Conqueror Prince's heart, causing him to almost faint. He wasn't the only one. The surrounding warriors, Master Bai, Senior Brother Wang, and the others, almost fainted when they saw this scene. This was simply too shocking. A quasi-emperor couldn't even fight back against Chu Fengyan. What kind of strength did he have to be able to achieve this? This is too terrifying. If we don't get rid of this person, there will be endless troubles in the future. Master Bai muttered to himself. He stared at Chu Fengyan in horror, and his heart was filled with murderous intent. Chu Fengyan's current cultivation was only at the heavenly fate realm. In their eyes, this cultivation realm was like an ant, but the strength he could unleash was enough to kill a quasi-emperor. If Chu Fengyan's cultivation realm rose to the ultimate heaven realm, the immortal realm, or even the emperor realm and became a quasi-emperor, what would happen then? Kill! We must kill this person. If we don't kill this person, we will all be trampled under his feet in the future. Take this opportunity to kill him. We can't let him leave the Thousand Beast Cave alive. Streams of spiritual consciousness conversed with each other. Almost all the experts present had the same thought. Chu Fengyan must be killed. Such a shocking monster must not be allowed to live. In the sky, after the Conqueror Prince's body was shattered, the battle dragon claw grabbed him in the palm. In an instant, his life was in Chu Fengyan's hands. Let go. When a fourth prince saw this scene, he ordered coldly, Brat, are you really planning to betray the Divine Dragon Empire? To think that you dare to make an enemy of the royal family. Betray? I, Chu Fengyan, have never been a member of the Divine Dragon Empire. Naturally, there is no betrayal. Chu Fengyan laughed loudly. Suddenly, he exerted force in his palm and crushed the Conqueror Prince, who was still struggling in his hand. Chu Fengyan collected Adler's blood essence into his body. After the divine tree consumed Adler's blood essence, Chu Fengyan could feel the divine tree's joy and the increase in his strength. The benefits of killing the Conqueror Prince were even greater than killing 100 Immortal Realm geniuses. After all, the Conqueror Prince had already reached the Emperor Realm. His strength was already completely different from that of an Immortal Realm cultivator. Unfortunately, the Conqueror Prince provoked Chu Fengyan right after his breakthrough and was crushed to death. Kill him. This person killed the Conqueror Prince as well. What ruthless means? He killed the Conqueror Prince. He is simply shedding all pretense of cordiality with the Divine Dragon Empire. This person is not afraid. In any case, he has already offended the Bai family and the Five Mountain Sword sect. I heard that he killed the Hua family's young master as well. What a crazy person. The fourth prince has always been arrogant. He is going to suffer today. Chapter 1150. Seeing Chu Fengyan not show any mercy, killing the tyrant prince in one move. The cultivators present all felt their hearts turn cold. On the phone, Chu Fengyan's craziness was even greater than they had imagined. The fourth prince stared at Chu Fengyan at a loss for words. This was especially so when Chu Fengyan killed the tyrant prince in one move. This was beyond the fourth prince's expectations. Very good. Chu Fengyan, from today on, you are a wanted criminal of the Divine Dragon Empire. Whoever kills this person will receive a reward from our Divine Dragon Empire. A threat. When Chu Fengyan heard the fourth prince's words, his expression changed. Then he suddenly attacked. In that case, you could die together with me. The battle dragon claw above Chu Fengyan's head immediately charged towards the fourth prince. A berserk energy immediately surged over. No one present expected this sudden attack. Right now, Chu Fengyan not only dared to kill the fourth prince, but also wanted to kill the fourth prince. The fourth prince's status was even nobler than that of young Master Bai and the others. Yet, Chu Fengyan wanted to kill him. Junior, you're going overboard. Prince Wei, the other quasi-emperor standing beside the fourth prince, shouted angrily. His eyes turned cold as he attacked at the same time. A beam of golden light blocked the fourth prince and immediately turned into a golden pagoda, encasing the fourth prince's group. The moment this golden pagoda appeared, it directly shattered the battle dragon claw's energy. Prince Wei said slowly as he looked at Chu Fengyan. Let me give you a word of advice. Brat, being too hard makes it easy to break. Even if you have some strength now, you are just an ant before the Divine Dragon Empire. Even if you're a true martial emperor, the Divine Dragon Empire can easily crush you to death. Let me give you a word of advice. Young man, don't be too arrogant. Is that so? Being too hard makes it easy to break? I only know how to return an eye for an eye. Chu Fengyan said casually. Since the fourth prince dares to threaten me, then he will have to pay the price. None of you will be able to escape today. All of you can die. You are just a small perfection quasi-emperor. Killing you would be as easy as swatting an ant. Chu Fengyan's eyes turned cold as he looked at Prince Wei. A spirit sword suddenly appeared in his hand. There was no need for him to hide anything at this point. Soaring sword intent condensed on Chu Fengyan's body. At the same time, the power of the Juk sword light was also added to Chu Fengyan's body. Now, Chu Fengyan was no longer the heavenly mandate realm, but had reached the celestial realm. His aura expanded countless times. At the same time, the sword intent of the sword god realm was added to Chu Fengyan's sword. Sword! Chu Feng shouted a single word, and the sword in his hand moved. Wherever the sword slashed, the golden pagoda would rumble. Following the explosion of this power, a gap was suddenly created in the pagoda, and in the next instant, the pagoda was directly shattered. This golden pagoda was also a heaven-grade spirit artifact. It was Prince Wei's supreme treasure. However, it was shattered by the ancestral dragon supreme sword on the spot. Behind the golden pagoda, the dragons beside the fourth prince were directly killed by the sword. Their bodies were shattered one after another, turning into pure blood energy. Chu Fengyan directly collected them and then devoured them by the divine tree. The blood essence of these dragons contained much more energy than that of ordinary cultivators. As the divine tree devoured them, Chu Fengyan's aura also rose steadily. Only Prince Wei and him were left in the fourth prince's group. Prince Wei had used his body to block the fourth prince's attack and take the brunt of the blow. Even so, the shattering of the golden pagoda and the rebounding force caused Prince Wei to be severely injured. The golden dragon pagoda was shattered by a sword strike just like that. The spirit sword in this person's hand is extraordinary. Its power is pure dragon power. There is no such spirit weapon in the Divine Dragon Empire. Could this person have obtained the inheritance of some ancient dragon race? Master Bai, Senior Brother Wang, and some other experts suddenly noticed the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword in Chu Fengmian's hand. It was impossible for Chu Fengmian to shatter the Golden Dragon Pagoda with just strength. However, the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword in Chu Fengmian's hand contained an extremely pure dragon power. It had a great suppressive force against the Golden Dragon Pagoda. In the end, the Golden Dragon Pagoda was shattered by this sword strike. Die! Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. The sword in his hand was filled with pure, killing intent. He activated the power of the Slaughtering Heaven Sword technique and slashed out with the Slaughtering Heaven Sword technique. Say the fourth prince. At this moment, several streams of spiritual energy suddenly burst out and bombarded Chu Fengmian. Of these several streams of spiritual energy, the two at the front were Master Bai and the Five Mountain Sword Sect senior brother Wang. The two of them sent out a sword light and a stream of spiritual energy, bombarding Chu Fengmian. Naturally, the two of them understood that without the lips, the teeth would feel cold. If the fourth prince and Prince Wei died at Chu Fengmian's hands, then Chu Fengmian would truly be unrivaled. Aside from the two of them, there were 4 quasi-emperors who attacked together. Clearly, the quasi-emperors who had been hiding at the side earlier could not help but attack after seeing Chu Fengmian's strength. Now, Chu Fengmian was able to kill quasi-emperors with ease, which made them feel an immense pressure. They took advantage of this opportunity to attack together. Even if they could not kill Chu Fengmian, they wanted to severely injure him and prevent him from obtaining the treasure of the heaven-swallowing beast. Unknowingly, these experts had already joined forces to attack Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian did not fear them. Instead, he revealed an excited expression. Good, come at me. Anyone who dares to stop me will be swept away by me. Chu Fengmian laughed loudly. The power in his body was pushed to the extreme. In the next moment, an unprecedented battle was about to break out. However, at this moment, a dazzling light suddenly shrouded the area. At the same time, blood chi burst out. The blood chi that soared into the sky came from within the palace. The bronze door outside the palace slowly opened, and the blood chi inside could no longer be suppressed and exploded out at the same time. The treasure is open. The treasure of the heaven-swallowing beast. Quick, let's go in quickly. Chapter 1151. Countless experts had gathered outside the palace, waiting for this moment. Those warriors who were still accumulating their strength to deal with Chu Fengmian shifted their gazes when they saw the opening of the palace. Instead of being entangled with Chu Fengmian here, they might as well fight for the treasures of the heaven-devouring beast. A trace of unwillingness flashed across the fourth prince's eyes. He had originally planned to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Chu Fengmian, but with the opening of the ancient bronze door, he no longer had such an opportunity. No warrior would be willing to see Chu Fengmian die here. Let's go to the 4 quasi-emperors who had gathered their strength to besiege Chu Fengmian retracted their strength the moment the treasure was opened. At the same time, their escape lights were extremely fast as they rushed toward the palace. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless escape lights flew toward the palace at a rapid speed. Chu Fengmian also displayed his escape light and entered the ancient bronze door in an instant. There was another world behind the ancient bronze door. This palace was a spiritual weapon personally refined by the heaven-devouring beast. It formed an independent space and was a huge mountain range. Around the mountain range, there were countless red crystals floating in the air. Blood crystals. These are all blood crystals. Beside Chu Fengmian, a series of exclamations could be heard. Countless blood crystals were densely packed around the mountain range. Chu Fengmian scanned with his spiritual consciousness and found that there were at least hundreds of thousands of blood crystals. These blood crystals were not bloodstones. The value of 1 blood crystal was more precious than 1,000 bloodstones. This was more than the wealth of 10,000 treasure lands combined. With so much wealth, it was no wonder that countless experts were attracted to this place. Even if they were not strong enough, they still wanted to get a share of the loot. Even if they could only obtain a few blood crystals, it was still a great harvest this time. These blood crystals can be used to upgrade my bloodline. Chu Fengyan glanced at them. Suddenly, his strength rose steadily. With a wave of his hand, the blood crystals that filled the sky were collected by Chu Fengyan one after another. Some martialists who wanted to compete with Chu Fengyan were killed by Chu Fengyan without hesitation. The ancient war dragon bloodline in his body was boiling, turning his body into a terrifying ancient war dragon. Every moment, countless blood crystals were collected. In less than a minute, Chu Fengyan had collected at least 1,000 blood crystals into his empty ring. However, Chu Fengyan did not have the time to refine the blood crystals. His top priority was to collect more wealth. Not only Chu Fengyan, but Mr. Bai, Prince Wei, the fourth prince, and the others were also making their moves to collect large amounts of blood crystals. In fact, many of the boundary emperors who had been in hiding had also shown themselves to collect the blood crystals. The value of these blood crystals was enough to make them drool. Soon, more than half of the blood crystals around the mountain range were collected. Such power! Alliance! One-on-one were no match for this brat. Chu Fengyan had transformed into an ancient war dragon. The speed at which he collected the blood crystals was shockingly fast. For a moment, he was invincible. Many martialists had quietly started to form alliances, especially Mr. Bai. Given his status in the ancient Serpent Empire, countless experts were willing to befriend him. Soon, dozens of martialists had gathered around Mr. Bai. There was even a boundary emperor who had chosen to form an alliance with him. For a moment, his forces were very strong. Wang Qianzhong of the Five Mountain Sword Sect, the fourth prince, and the others were also trying to win over experts and form alliances. Their forces were rising steadily. Most of the experts present had formed an alliance with the three forces. Chu Fengyan, on the other hand, was alone. Chu Fengyan had already fallen out with the Bai family, the Five Mountain Sword Sect, and the Divine Dragon Empire. Anyone who formed an alliance with Chu Fengyan would be courting death. No one was willing to stand beside Chu Fengyan. Wang Qianzhong, fourth prince, how about we join forces to kill this brat first? This brat's methods are strange. If we don't kill him, I'm afraid he will take advantage of the situation and obtain the treasures of the heaven-devouring beast. Mr. Bai suddenly said to Wang Qianzhong and the fourth prince beside him. These three forces were the strongest representatives in the palace. They had more than 100 old ancestors of the immortal realm and 5 quasi-emperors. This kind of force was no weaker than any of the major sections. Sure, let's kill this person. I need his sword technique. His sword technique must belong to our Five Mountain Sword Sect. When Wang Qianzhong heard Mr. Bai's words, he stared at Chu Fengyan with undisguised greed in his eyes. Chu Fengyan's sword technique was even more profound than the Five Mountain Sword Sect's sword technique. If Wang Qianzhong learned it, his strength would improve further. He might even be able to control the Five Mountain Sword Sect in the future. Furthermore, he already hated Chu Fengyan to the bone. This was the best opportunity for him. I want this person's bloodline. His bloodline belongs to the dragon race. No one can take it. The fourth prince stared at Chu Fengyan and said viciously, "All right, I only need his tongue snake bloodline. His dragon race bloodline belongs to the fourth prince. The rest belongs to me. Let's attack together and kill this guy first." Master Bai nodded and locked on to Chu Fengyan. Without hesitation, he made a move. Soaring skybreak. Master Bai's body suddenly changed. He turned into a giant python with a pair of wings on his back. He looked like this soaring serpent. His soaring serpent bloodline was unleashed without hesitation, and he charged towards Chu Fengyan. The power of his attack was astonishing. None of the quasi-emperors could compare to young Master Bai's current strength. When Mr. Bai used his tongue snake bloodline, Chu Fengyan felt that his strength was suppressed. Mr. Bai's tongue snake bloodline was purer than Chu Fengyan's. It was innately pressuring Chu Fengyan. Damn it! Tongue snake transformation, explode. Chu Fengyan's eyes turned cold. At this point, he had nothing to hide. The power of the tongue snake transformation was activated. Like Chu Fengyan, Mr. Bai used some means to barely activate the power of the tongue snake bloodline. After all, he was not a boundary emperor yet. He could not activate it for a long time. As long as he could get through this, the pressure would be relieved. The two forces collided in the air. Chu Fengmian's body only shook slightly, but he did not suffer any injuries. Even though Mr. Bai's bloodline was purer than Chu Fengmian's, he was still in the immortal realm. He had not stepped into the Emperor realm yet. He could suppress Chu Fengmian's bloodline, but he could not cause any damage. Chapter 1152. Kid, give me your life. Wang Qianzhong let out a hollow laugh and took advantage of the opportunity to make his move. The sword light in his hand was extremely fast. In an instant, it blasted towards Chu Fengmian. The sword contained the 5 elements of heaven and earth: Yi wood, Gung metal, Li fire, Gui water, and Su earth. The 5 great sword arts of the 5 mountain sword sect were all displayed by Wang Qianzhong. The sword was so powerful that it mobilized the power of heaven and earth and slashed towards Chu Fengmian. 5 elements as one. Wang Qianzhong's strength has reached such a level. Even Master Bai, the 4th prince, and the others could not help but look at Wang Qianzhong. They did not expect Wang Qianzhong to have hidden his strength so deeply. The peak of the 5 mountains sword sect swordsmanship was the fusion of the 5 elements. This was a realm that not many quasi-emperors in the 5 mountain sword sect could reach. Now, Wang Qianzhong had comprehended to this level. Prince Wei, let's attack together. After the 4th prince recovered from his shock, he looked at Chu Fengmian coldly. The stronger Wang Qianzhong was, the more chances he had to kill Chu Fengmian. Under the suppression of Master Bai's bloodline, Chu Fengmian's strength was suppressed by at least 30%. He could only use 70% of his strength. Now was the best time to kill Chu Fengmian. Unless Chu Fengmian escaped and gave up fighting for the sky-devouring beast treasure, Chu Fengmian would definitely die today. Tianlong Claw. The 4th prince roared. Tianlong's bloodline was fully activated. His body turned into a huge Tianlong and attacked Chu Fengmian with his claw. At the same time, Prince Wei and the other quasi-emperors also attacked together. They did not hesitate to attack Chu Fengmian. They attacked with killing moves. They did not intend to give Chu Fengmian any chance. They wanted to kill Chu Fengmian in one move. The attack of 8 quasi-emperors and 100 immortal realm old ancestors was a terrifying force. Even a real sovereign realm expert would not be able to withstand this force. How dare you attack me at this moment? Today all of you will die. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. At the same time, he was secretly shocked. Master Bai's power was greater than he had imagined. With just a few words, it was sufficient to form an alliance to deal with Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian was not the least bit afraid. In any case, when it was time to fight for the treasure of the heaven-swallowing beast, everyone would have to rely on their own abilities. It was not a big deal for them to begin early. The power of the tree of God, bless me. Quietly, Chu Fengmian pushed the power of the sacred tree to the extreme and infused it into Chu Fengmian. Since coming to the world of blood, Chu Fengmian had already killed 2 quasi-emperors and countless immortal realm geniuses. Their blood essence was now being devoured by the divine tree. The divine tree in Chu Fengmian's body had already grown to a height of 100 meters. Every single branch was extremely tough. When the power of the divine tree reached its peak, Chu Fengmian's palm also moved. Chu Fengmian also summoned the titanic pagoda godly sword from his left hand. With both swords in hand, Chu Fengmian's aura grew several times stronger. Sky-breaking dual swords. The power of the 2 spiritual swords was pushed to the extreme by Chu Fengmian. They turned into 2 dazzling sword lights and suddenly soared into the sky. Dual swords. Wang Qianzhong's expression changed the moment he saw the titanic pagoda godly sword. He originally thought that Chu Fengmian's previous swordsmanship was already his full strength. However, when the titanic pagoda godly sword appeared, he realized that Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship was not as simple as it seemed. This swordsmanship was even more terrifying than the strongest expert of the 5 mountain sword sect. So what if your sword sect is heaven-defying? Today, with so many of us joining forces, you will definitely die. Wang Qianzhong snorted coldly. At the same time, countless spiritual energy collided with the 2 swords in the air. Boom! The terrifying tremor caused the entire palace to be turned upside down. However, this was a palace refined by the heaven-swallowing beast after all. Such a terrifying force could not damage the palace. However, a large gap was created in the mountain range. Under this gap, there was a blood-red area. A blood-red underground palace. Underground palace. In this underground palace, there was a crimson fruit lying quietly. Although it was called a fruit, it contained vitality and was even beating. The heart. This is the heart of the heaven-swallowing beast. Xing Xian's voice suddenly sounded in Chu Fengmian's mind. This thing still exists. What? The heart of the heaven-swallowing beast. Chu Fengmian was shocked when he heard Xing Xian's words. He could see that the crimson fruit in front of him was powerful. The power it contained was ancient and enormous. It was much more powerful than any treasure Chu Fengmian had ever seen. However, this was actually the heart of the heaven-swallowing beast. Opportunity, great opportunity. If I can refine the heart of the heaven-swallowing beast, it will be much more useful than obtaining a drop of blood essence. If I can obtain the heart of the innate divine beast, I wonder how powerful I will be. Chu Fengmian's heart skipped a beat. He was very excited. This was simply more precious than any other opportunity. Chu Fengmian must obtain the heart of the heaven-swallowing beast. You bunch of trash. I'm not interested in playing with you anymore. All of you go to hell. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness. Suddenly, a worn-out jar appeared in his palm. The appearance of the worn-out jar did not attract anyone's attention until Chu Fengmian injected spiritual energy into it. A vast and ancient power burst out from the worn-out jar. The expressions of the countless experts present changed involuntarily. This is extreme path immortal weapon? The power contained in the broken jar had already surpassed the category of heaven-grade spiritual weapons. Even the most powerful heaven-grade spiritual weapons could not be compared with this broken jar. How could such a legendary thing suddenly appear? And it fell into the hands of this person? Oh no, retreat. Master Bai, Wang Qianzhong, and the others' faces changed. When the power of the broken jar began to gather, they had already felt a sense of danger and immediately retreated. However, it was too late now. Human Emperor's spear. Chu Fengmian roared. The Emperor's jar suddenly transformed into an ancient spear in his palm. Given Chu Fengmian's current strength, he could easily activate the killing move of the Emperor's jar, the Emperor's spear. Boom! Chapter 1153. Wherever the spear of the human emperor swept across, everything was shattered. Vaguely, all the martial artists who attacked Chu Fengmian were struck by the power of the spear. The human emperor's spear was once a weapon used by the human emperor to slay demons. No matter how powerful the demons were, they would still die under the human emperor's spear. Not even a heaven-grade spiritual weapon could withstand the sharpness of the human emperor's spear. No expert could withstand the sharpness of the spear of the human emperor. The first thing that Master Bai and the others wanted to do was to escape. However, this was only a part of Chu Fengmian's strength. He still had other powers that he had yet to display. Tianlong transformation. A dragon roared behind Chu Fengmian, and the shadow of Primogenitor Tianlong appeared. When the ancestor sky dragon's shadow appeared, the universe froze. The surrounding space froze. No matter how strong the martialists present were, they couldn't escape even if they used all their strength. What kind of technique is this? Freezing the space? Enough to freeze all of us? How is this possible? Master Bai and the others were horrified. They were 8 Emperor-to-be experts and 100 old ancestors of the immortal realm. Yet, they were still frozen by the spear of the human emperor. Even a true sovereign would not be able to do this. Primogenitor Tianlong, the power of the Lord of Space. This is the power of Primogenitor Tianlong. How can he use the power of 2 innate divine beasts at the same time? Prince Wei was shocked. As a member of the Dragon Clan, he naturally knew what this power was. It was the power of Primogenitor Tianlong, the ancestor of all dragons. All of them were frozen in the air, unable to escape. They could only gather all their strength to resist the attack of the human emperor's spear. Bam! Bam! Wherever the human emperor's spear passed, countless martial artists were killed instantly. Their bodies exploded. Many martial artists could only watch as the human emperor's spear pierced through their bodies and shattered them. Chu Fengmian didn't waste any of their essence blood. He formed a vortex and absorbed it all, fusing it with the god tree. The blood essence was a great supplement for the divine tree, allowing it to grow unceasingly. 110 meters, 120 meters. From Chu Fengmian's body, the sacred tree was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, the speed at which it devoured the essence blood was also increasing. After coming to the ancient monster continent, the sacred tree had started to transform from its infancy. Like a young man, it needed an endless supply of energy for its growth. The divine tree had always been starving. The blood essence of a few warriors was nothing to the divine tree. Hence, its strength did not increase by much. This time, except for Master Bai, Wang Qianzhong, the fourth prince, and the remaining 5 quasi-emperors, the rest of the martial artists and demon gods were all killed by the human emperor's spear. The godly tree devoured the blood essence of more than 100 immortal realm ancestors. Finally, the godly tree had a full meal, and its strength was rising rapidly. 200 meters. Under Chu Fengmian's body, the height of the sacred tree had doubled, reaching 200 meters. At the same time, the several branches on Chu Fengmian's body had also doubled in size. This also meant that the toughness of Chu Fengmian's body had also doubled. Chu Fengmian felt that the power of the sacred tree had stopped growing. It wasn't because there was no more energy to devour, but because Chu Fengmian's body had reached its limit. His body had reached the limit of the heavenly mandate realm. Even though Chu Fengmian had the bloodline of an innate divine beast, if the sacred tree continued to grow, Chu Fengmian's body would burst. After all, the sacred tree used to be an existence that could pierce through heaven and earth. The remaining energy had been stored by the sacred tree. Now, as long as Chu Fengmian's cultivation level increased, the sacred tree's strength would also increase. At that time, Chu Fengmian's strength would also increase. It's a pity that I didn't manage to kill these quasi-emperors. If it wasn't for Master Bai, at least 2 or 3 of these quasi-emperors would have died. Chu Fengmian looked at the quasi-emperors and couldn't help but feel pity. He had been waiting for this opportunity for too long. Such an opportunity would only come once. Originally, the human emperor's spear and Tianlong's strength would be enough to kill at least 2 weaker quasi-emperors. However, Chu Fengmian's strength had been suppressed by 30% because of Master Bai. In the end, these 8 quasi-emperors were still alive. For example, although Mr. Bai, the fourth prince, and Wang Qianzhong were not quasi-emperors, their life-saving means were not inferior to quasi-emperors. They were all important figures of their respective forces. Killing them was more difficult than killing a quasi-emperor. Although these 8 quasi-emperors were more or less injured, Chu Fengmian didn't intend to kill them. His goal was still the heart of the heaven-devouring beast. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's figure flew towards the underground palace below. His target was the heart of the heaven-devouring beast. This person has an extreme, immortal weapon. Damn it, this kid is going to seize the treasure of the heaven-devouring beast. We can't let him get it. Master Bai, the fourth prince, and the others roared and struggled to break free from Tianlong's seal. Chu Fengmian's Tianlong transformation could only seal them for a moment. As Chu Fengmian flew towards the underground palace, the seal on their bodies was also released. However, by this time, he had already reached the underground palace and stood in front of the heaven-devouring beast's heart. Chu Fengmian, you have to be careful. Although the heaven-devouring beast's heart has been dead for thousands of years, the power it contains is still terrifying. Xing Xian couldn't help but remind Chu Fengmian his mind. Although the power of innate divine beasts would gradually weaken with the passage of time, it was because their power was simply too strong. Even if it only left a 10,000th of its power, it would be easy to destroy Chu Fengmian. It's okay. I feel that the birth of the heaven-devouring beast's heart wasn't a coincidence. It was done on purpose. It should be a scheme of the heaven-devouring beast. The scheme of an innate divine beast isn't something I can guess. However, I have to get this heart. Chu Fengmian was clear that the birth of the palace wasn't a coincidence. However, he couldn't care less about that now. How could he not want the heaven-devouring beast's heart when it was right in front of him? Absorb. A dragon claw formed above Chu Fengmian's head and grabbed at the heaven-devouring beast's heart. This treasure belongs to us. Chu Fengmian, today is the day you die. Assassinate Skyblade. Chapter 1154. The appearance of the two black long swords was soundless. No one was able to detect where they came from. Their target was none other than Chu Fengmian. Quietly, they arrived behind Chu Fengmian and attacked him. The rats of the secret assassin society have finally shown themselves. Seeing the two black longswords, Chu Fengmian's face did not show any surprise. He even revealed a playful smile. From the very beginning, he had followed the two kings of assassins to the bloody continent. Chu Fengmian only killed Wang Sha, and Wang Sha did not show himself. Of course, Chu Fengmian knew the style of the secret assassin society. They would definitely not let Chu Fengmian go. Moreover, they were the best at assassination. They would definitely deal with Chu Fengmian at the most crucial moment. Therefore, from the very beginning, Chu Fengmian had already thought of everything. However, he did not expect that there would be two people coming to kill him. But now, the more the better. Boundless Phantom, Chu Fengmian suddenly accelerated and dodged to the side. He had already mastered the phantom movement technique. In an instant, his body flickered and disappeared. What? The two black longswords were the two kings of assassins of the secret assassin society. They did not expect that Chu Fengmian had already guessed their actions. For a moment, they did not react. Suddenly, the two black long swords slashed at the heaven-devouring beast's heart. Chu Fengmian was originally standing in front of the heaven-devouring beast's heart. Now that Chu Fengmian had suddenly disappeared, the two black long swords slashed at the heaven-devouring beast's heart. Rumble! At the moment when the two long swords were about to collide, a huge suction force burst out and turned into a bottomless vortex. Heaven-devouring secret technique. Crack! The two long swords suddenly shattered and turned into two figures. One of them was an old man, Wang Sha, whom Chu Fengmian had met before. The other person was an extremely seductive lady. This lady's strength was still within Wang Sha's. In Chu Fengmian's memory, there was only one lady among the four kings of assassins of the secret assassin society. She was Mei Sha. He was the second most powerful person in the secret killer society, second only to the president of the secret killer society. The two tried to ambush Chu Fengmian, but Chu Fengmian dodged their attacks and slashed at the heart of the heaven-devouring beast, triggering the heaven-devouring mystic technique. A giant vortex encapsulated their figures. "Let's go!" Mei Sha yelled and immediately turned into a ray of light, merging with the space around her as she tried to escape. They knew very well how powerful the heaven-devouring secret technique was. Anyone that was devoured by that bottomless vortex would definitely die. The heaven-devouring god shall not be blasphemed. A furious roar erupted from the heaven-devouring beast's heart. This voice was extremely ancient. In fact, Chu Fengmian could hear that the voice belonged to a time in the distant primal chaos when pre-heaven god beasts abounded in great numbers. That was a time when true experts were as common as the clouds. Even though the heaven-devouring beast had been dead for tens of thousands of years, its dignity was not to be blasphemed. Everything in the world is being devoured. Following this roar, the heaven-devouring mystic technique suddenly expanded. This time, it devoured the surrounding space. Space was shattered into pieces and then devoured by the heaven-devouring mystic technique into the vortex. In the vicinity, even space no longer existed. Even the turbulence of the void had been devoured, turning into a bottomless void. This is too terrifying, devouring the world. Exactly how terrifying is the heaven-devouring beast's true strength. Even a heart that has been dead for tens of thousands of years, is this terrifying? Chu Fengmian used the phantom movement technique to teleport to a safe place the instant Mei Sha and Wang Sha attacked. Even so, Chu Fengmian was not alarmed. The strength of the heaven-devouring beast had exceeded Chu Fengmian's imagination. It was much more terrifying than any strength that Chu Fengmian knew of. Pre-heaven god beasts possess pre-heaven power. The heaven-devouring beast has inherited the most powerful devouring power. Devouring the world is nothing difficult for it. Xing Xian said slowly. For example, Tung, she has inherited pure power. At his peak, a casual strike is enough to shatter the ancient monster continent. No matter how many sovereigns there are, they are all ants in front of him, shattering the ancient monster continent with a single strike. Hearing this, Chu Fengmian was a little stunned and then sighed. In Chu Fengmian's opinion, sovereigns were unparalleled existences. Unfortunately, they were still ants in front of pre-heaven god beasts. For example, the heaven-devouring beast's heart had weakened tens of thousands of times over the past tens of thousands of years, but it was still able to easily deal with the quasi-emperor. Will Little Nine also grow into such a terrifying existence in the future? Chu Fengmian couldn't help but think of Little Nine. According to Xing Xian, Little Nine should also be in pre-heaven god beast. Will it also be able to shatter the ancient monster continent with a single strike? If Little Nine grows up, it should be able to do all this. However, the growth of a pre-heaven god beast is difficult. It may not reach its peak in millions of years. By then, you will have already fallen. Xing Xian said ruthlessly in Chu Fengmian's mind. The lifespan of a cultivator was 10,000 years. It was already shocking to reach 10,000 years. Those who had stepped into the Emperor realm could only live for tens of thousands of years at most. As for millions of years, even monster gods couldn't live that long. Perhaps only pre-heaven god beasts could live that long. Forget it. I can't always rely on Little Nine's power. If he is still weak, he doesn't deserve to be his master. Chu Fengmian's heart moved, and he turned his gaze back. In the vortex, the power of Mei Sha and Wang Sha had been exhausted. The two of them were still overflowing with spirit qi to resist the devouring, but they were about to reach the point of exhaustion. Bam! Suddenly, Wang Sha couldn't hold on any longer. His body suddenly shattered into a cloud of blood mist and was swallowed by the vortex. Only Mei Sha was left, struggling to resist. The power of the heaven-devouring beast's heart is almost exhausted. At the same time, Chu Fengmian also noticed that the power of the heaven-devouring beast's heart was almost exhausted. He had already calculated that these two kings of assassins would choose to launch a sneak attack. That was why Chu Fengmian deliberately pretended to collect the heaven-devouring beast's heart to expose a flaw and let them and the heaven-devouring beast's heart suffer. Chapter 1155. Now is the time. My chance has come. Chu Fengmian's figure suddenly rushed towards the heaven-devouring beast's heart. He could feel that the power of the heaven-devouring beast's heart was only temporarily consumed. Now, the heaven-devouring beast's heart was continuously devouring the surrounding blood qi. In a world of blood, the blood qi was almost endless. The blood qi was the source of his power. After some time, the power of the heaven-devouring beast's heart would be restored. Chu Fengmian had schemed for a long time to get this opportunity. Of course, he would not let it go. In an instant, Chu Fengmian rushed to the heaven-devouring beast's heart. Suddenly, the sword in his hand flashed. Two spiritual swords mercilessly slashed towards the heaven-devouring beast's heart. When the two sword qis were close to the heaven-devouring beast's heart, a huge vortex appeared again. The power of the heaven-devouring secret skill devoured the two sword qis completely. However, this time, the speed of the heaven-devouring secret skill's formation was much slower than before. Chu Fengmian could clearly feel that the power of the heaven-devouring beast's heart had reached the point of exhaustion. As long as the heaven-devouring secret skill was broken, Chu Fengmian would be able to obtain the heaven-devouring beast heart. Heaven-breaking dual swords. Chu Fengmian pushed his power to the extreme and poured it all into the two spiritual swords. In an instant, the two sword qis in the vortex suddenly became countless times bigger and more powerful. Under the sweeping power, the vortex shook. Oh no, he's trying to obtain the heaven-devouring beast's heart. We can't let him succeed. Otherwise, it'll be a huge problem for all of us. He's using all his power to deal with the heaven-devouring beast's heart. Let's attack now and catch him off guard. Mr. Bai, the fourth prince, and the others immediately made their moves without hesitation. They could see that Chu Fengyan was at the most critical moment. 99% of his power was used to resist the power of the heaven-devouring secret skill. He had no time to divert his attention to deal with them. A dazzling five-colored sword light appeared and slashed at Chu Fengyan. It was Wang Qianzhong. This person's sword light was incredibly fast, and he had been holding back the entire time. However, when he saw that Chu Fengyan was planning to seize the heaven-devouring beast's heart, he unleashed all of his power. This sword light was countless times more terrifying than the previous one. Might of the Sword God. This sword light contained the origin of sword principle. God of Sword Realm. When did Wang Qianzhong's sword intent reach such a terrifying level? Master Bai and the fourth prince were both shocked. Wang Qianzhong's sword had displayed the sword will of the Sword God realm. Even in the Five Mountain Sword sect, many Emperor-to-be had not reached that level. Wang Qianzhong's sword essence had reached the Sword God realm, which meant that he would be the next sect master of the Five Mountain Sword sect. There was no doubt about it, but Wang Qianzhong had never shown it. At this moment, the hidden supreme body was exposed in order to kill Chu Fengyan with one sword strike. Chu Fengyan, do you think you're the only one who can reach the Sword God realm? I've reached it long before you. Today, your arrogance will also end here. Wang Qianzhong's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. He did not use his full strength when he teamed up to deal with Chu Fengyan. He was waiting for this moment. The sword will of the Sword God realm meant that he had stepped into the divine realm. This sword strike was no longer an ordinary martial technique, but one that had comprehended the origin of sword principle. Under this sword strike, the earth quaked and the mountains shook. Let's attack and kill this man first. The fourth prince, Prince Wei, Master Bai, and the others did not want to be outdone. They all unleashed their full strength and bombarded Chu Fengyan with countless killing moves. These killing moves did not give Chu Fengyan the slightest chance to escape. Damn it! The power of the divine tree, bless my body. Ancient dragon emperor body. Chu Fengyan's eyes were filled with killing intent. 99% of his strength was used to deal with the sky-devouring beast's heart. Under his sword chi, the power of the sky-devouring secret skill had been weakened countless times. If Chu Fengyan was given a little more time, he would be able to subdue the sky-devouring beast's heart and take it directly. However, Wang Qianzhong and the others suddenly attacked at this moment. Chu Fengyan had no time to deal with them. He could only urge the power of the divine tree to resist. Golden scales condensed around Chu Fengyan, and the shadow of the ancient dragon emperor shrouded Chu Fengyan's body, completely shrouding him. At the same time, the power of the divine tree merged with the ancient dragon emperor phantom. Boom! The five-colored sword light was the first to strike the primordial dragon emperor's illusory figure. More than half of its golden scales were instantly cut off. However, the power of the divine tree was still firmly supporting Chu Fengyan's body. The sword light was unable to hurt Chu Fengyan. What a powerful physical body. This secret technique is the ancient dragon emperor body. No, even the ancient dragon emperor body can't be so tough. This guy has a supreme treasure that can strengthen his body to such an unimaginable level. The fourth prince stared at Chu Fengyan. As a member of the dragon clan, he immediately recognized the ancient dragon emperor body behind Chu Fengyan. However, even the ancient dragon emperor body, which was known as the supreme secret skill of the dragon clan, could not strengthen Chu Fengyan's body to such an extent. He could see that there was a spiritual power supporting Chu Fengyan's body. That was why Chu Fengyan's body could reach such a terrifying level. The fourth prince guessed that it must be a spiritual weapon in Chu Fengyan's body. He would never guess that it was the divine tree that once pierced through the heavens and earth and supported the 9 regions. Don't be afraid. This guy can't divide his strength now. He can only resist with his body. I would like to see how far his body can resist. Master Bai smiled ferociously and revealed his true form. A huge python suddenly crashed toward Chu Fengmian. Boom! The collision shook the earth and mountains. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Even though the ancient dragon emperor body and the power of the divine tree had reduced the impact of the collision, it was impossible for him to not be injured by the collision of a quasi-emperor. This tortoise shell is quite tough. However, I would like to see how many more times it can resist. Master Bai's face was gloomy and cold. He revealed a cruel smile and attacked again. Chapter 1156. At the same time, the crimson heaven-devouring beast's heart disappeared, absorbed by Chu Fengmian's body. What? The heaven-devouring beast's heart was taken by him? He managed to suppress the heaven-devouring beast's heart so quickly? Master Bai was sent flying with a single blow, spitting out blood. His eyes were filled with disbelief. The heaven-devouring beast's heart was a genuine Xiantian divine beast heart. Yet it was taken by Chu Fengmian just like that? No, he hasn't taken it yet. He only suppressed the heaven-devouring beast's heart into his body. Although he can unleash his power now, most of it is used to deal with the heaven-devouring beast's heart. If he uses too much of his power, he will be devoured by the heaven-devouring secret technique. The fourth prince stared at Chu Fengmian and suddenly said. He had the same bloodline as Chu Fengmian, so he could clearly see the changes in Chu Fengmian's body. Although the heaven-devouring beast's heart was suppressed into Chu Fengmian's body, it still contained power, which required Chu Fengmian to use his power to suppress it. Once he used too much power, he might be devoured by the backlash. It was like walking on a tightrope. If Chu Fengmian hadn't sensed that the power of the divine tree was about to collapse, he could only try his best to suppress the heaven-devouring beast's heart. In this way, although there would be danger, Chu Fengmian would be able to protect himself. Initially, Chu Fengmian wanted to deceive these people, but he didn't expect the fourth prince to be able to see through Chu Fengmian's body. This fourth prince is really troublesome. Chu Fengmian looked at the fourth prince, murderous intent surging in his eyes. This person's strength was nothing in Chu Fengmian's eyes, but his bloodline allowed him to see through Chu Fengmian's concealment. Moreover, this person had a noble status and knew many secrets. Damn it, since I can't hide, let's fight. Although I can only use half of my strength, it doesn't mean that I can't fight. Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Even if he were to die, he would die fighting, not dying from a sneak attack. This person is just a facade. Kill him. The fourth prince stared at Chu Fengmian as if victory was already in his grasp. As long as he could delay Chu Fengmian, he would continue to consume his energy. There was no need for them to act. The heaven-devouring beast's heart would be the first to devour Chu Fengmian. Yuan Long, Tianwu. Prince Wei, who was standing next to the fourth prince, was the first to make a move. He transformed into a gigantic Yuan dragon and charged toward Chu Fengmian. Fight! Chu Fengmian wasn't any inferior. With a thought, the battle dragon claw condensed above Chu Fengmian's head. The two forces faced each other in the air. Although Prince Wei's bloodline was inferior to Chu Fengmian's, his cultivation far surpassed Chu Fengmian's. Boom! Due to the collision, the battle dragon claw above Chu Fengmian's head was directly shattered. At the same time, Prince Wei's two dragon claws shot toward Chu Fengmian's body. This kid's strength is less than 50%. If we attack now, we will definitely be able to kill him. Prince Wei laughed loudly and stared at Chu Fengmian as if he was staring at a prey. If Chu Fengmian had gone all out, he would have lost without a doubt. But now, Chu Fengmian was using at least 50% of his power to suppress and refine the heaven-devouring beast's heart. This gave him an opportunity. Attack! The remaining quasi-emperors didn't hesitate. Prince Wei's attack just now was a test. They also doubted if the fourth prince's words were true. But after seeing this scene, they all understood that Chu Fengmian was at his weakest when he couldn't fight Prince Wei with his current strength. If Chu Fengmian went all out, they might still have some scruples. But now, all they wanted was to crush Chu Fengmian to death and then take away the countless opportunities in his body. Not good. Chu Fengmian's expression changed. Suddenly, his body moved and turned into countless shadows as he retreated. If it was any other time, Chu Fengmian would definitely use brute force to fight back. Even if these quasi-emperors joined forces, Chu Fengmian's strength was enough to crush them. But now, Chu Fengmian didn't dare to use his full strength. His body flickered continuously as he pushed the phantom body technique to the extreme. He turned into countless shadows as he dodged the attacks. Still trying to dodge? 5 elements, sword, qi, heaven, and earth seal. Wang Qianzhong didn't hesitate. He activated his sword will again and turned it into thousands of spiritual swords. The power of these thousands of spiritual swords was nothing in front of Chu Fengmian. But once they came into contact with the shadows that didn't have a physical body, they were enough to sweep them away. Chu Fengmian's phantom body technique was broken by more than half in an instant. His real body was forced out. His real body is out. Kill. Prince Wei and the others were waiting for this moment. When they saw Chu Fengmian's real body appear, they immediately attacked Chu Fengmian with countless martial techniques. Tianlong change. Chu Fengmian suddenly let out a long roar. The surrounding space was instantly sealed. The power of Prince Wei and the others' attacks were also frozen in the space, unable to move. At this moment, Chu Fengmian's body hurriedly retreated. But Chu Fengmian's face was also pale. The power of Tianlong change could only be activated once a day. Now that Chu Fengmian forced himself to activate it a second time, it was simply damaging his origin. Chu Fengmian could feel that his current power was a little weaker than it was just now. To forcefully activate the power of an innate divine beast, the price one had to pay was extremely high. Damn it, I'm going to kill all of you. Quick, just a little bit more. Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. His body flashed in the air again. The power of Tianlong change disappeared completely in an instant. This time, the seal on the 8 quasi-emperors was broken almost instantly. This kid has run out of tricks. Let's continue to chase. Prince Wei and the others looked in the direction Chu Fengmian's escape light went in pursuit. In the blink of an eye, several escape lights surrounded Chu Fengmian. They stared at Chu Fengmian. The murderous intent in their eyes was self-evident. A little brat who doesn't know the difference between life and death. So what if he is strong? He's still an ant in front of us. The 4th prince stared at Chu Fengmian with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Kid, I'll give you one last chance. As my slave, I can save you today. Have you chased enough? Chu Fengmian's face suddenly calmed down when he heard the 4th prince's words. There was a mocking smile in his eyes. Chapter 11:57. I've chased enough. All of you can go and die today. Chu Fengmian's gaze swept across the 4th prince, Master Bai, and the others. This man has just suppressed the sky-devouring beast's heart and is still bluffing. The 4th prince stared at Chu Fengmian, sized him up, and then laughed. So what if you've suppressed the sky-devouring beast heart? The 8 of us together are enough to deal with you. Don't talk nonsense with him. Just kill him. Master Bai stared at Chu Fengmian and shouted coldly. Attack! Kill this man with all your might. Prince Wei also roared and took the lead. He turned into a huge yuan dragon and attacked Chu Fengmian with his huge body. Wang Qianzhong's sword light and Master Bai's martial technique. 8 quasi-emperor level experts joined forces to attack Chu Fengmian at the same time. This time, Chu Fengmian would not have the chance to activate the power of Tianlong change. He had no choice but to resist. Even a real sovereign realm expert might not be able to resist the joint attack of 8 emperor-to-be experts. Take his life. The 8 of them had forced Chu Fengmian into a desperate situation. If Chu Fengmian was allowed to recover, none of them would have a good ending. Every move they made was an absolute killer move. They did not give Chu Fengmian any chance to escape. Boom! The 8 emperor-to-be experts attacked. The space trembled and was shattered. The turbulence in the space was boiling. Courting death? Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. If it was before, the 8 of them might have some scruples. But now, in Chu Fengmian's second origin land, an enormous beast stood there. This beast opened its huge mouth and devoured everything in the world. Nothing could escape from its devouring. Today, no matter how many of you come, it's useless. Sky devouring. Chu Fengyan let out a long roar. A gigantic vortex slowly condensed behind Chu Fengyan's back. The vortex was deep and boundless. A terrifying force instantly engulfed everything around it. The turbulence in the space was devoured by the vortex and turned into nothingness. What's going on? Sky devouring secret skill? Master Bai, the fourth prince, and the others could not help but tremble. The force that erupted from the vortex was enough to make them feel fear from the bottom of their hearts. Isn't this the sky-devouring secret skill? Could it be that he has refined the sky-devouring beast's heart and has the third innate divine beast bloodline? He has 3 innate divine beast bloodlines? Everyone looked at Chu Fengyan in disbelief. A genius with 2 kinds of innate divine beast bloodlines was already unheard of. Now he could even fuse a 3rd kind of bloodline into his body. Let's break. Kill him. Kill him. Wang Qianzhong stared at Chu Fengyan and shouted. In 5 elements divine sword. Out. 5 spiritual swords came out from Wang Qianzhong's back. They represented the 5 elements sword arts of the 5 mountains sword sect. Wang Qianzhong had spent countless resources to condense them. However, the power of the 5 spiritual swords could only be used once. In order to break the sky-devouring secret skill, Wang Qianzhong did not hesitate to use them. Brat, remember that I, Wang Qianzhong, will kill you. Wang Qianzhong's body emitted 5-colored sword radiance. He waved the sword, and the 5 spiritual swords rushed towards Chu Fengyan. The 5 spiritual swords represented the 5 origin energy of the heavens and earth. Suddenly, they covered Chu Fengyan's head and tried to drown him in the 5-element spiritual power. What a waste of energy! Chu Fengyan stood where he was and didn't even raise his head. From the huge vortex behind him, an endless suction force erupted and pulled all the 5 elemental spiritual energies into it. Boom! Boom! The endless 5 elements spiritual power was swallowed by the vortex. The vortex was still bottomless and was not shaken at all. Suddenly, the power of the vortex burst out and locked onto Wang Qianzhong. Wang Qianzhong could feel that his power was completely sealed. Even if he used all his trump cards, he would not be able to escape from the vortex. Devour. Chu Fengyan only spat out one word. The vortex behind him suddenly became more powerful. Wang Qianzhong's body was instantly pulled by a powerful devouring force. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not escape from the sky-devouring secret skill. Chu Fengyan, let me go. Let me go. We, the 5 mountain sword sect, will never be your enemy. Wang Qianzhong shouted in fear. He no longer cared about his identity. The moment he was locked by the sky-devouring secret skill, his heart was filled with endless fear. No need. I will destroy the 5 mountains sword sect. Chu Fengyan smiled contemptuously. You have chased me for so long. It's time to die. Devour. As Chu Fengyan spoke, the sky-devouring secret skill vortex suddenly rotated and swallowed Wang Qianzhong's body. I can't accept this. I am the genius of the 5 mountains sword sect. I will become the new sect master of the 5 mountains sword sect. How can I die? Wang Qianzhong roared crazily and tried his best to break free. However, his strength was like an ant in front of the sky-devouring secret skill. Boom! Wang Qianzhong's body was directly pulled into the vortex. In an instant, his body was smashed and his essence blood was controlled by Chu Fengyan. At the same time, Chu Fengyan's mind moved and several mysterious swordsmanship were extracted from Wang Qianzhong's essence blood. These swordsmanship of the 5 mountain sword sect was not available in the 9 regions. Now that Chu Fengyan killed Wang Qianzhong, he extracted all of his swordsmanship and inserted them into the ancient swordsmanship book. The 9 regions swordsmanship that Chu Fengyan wanted to create had to accommodate and surpass everything. These swordsmanship were condensed into Chu Fengyan's own swordsmanship. This made Chu Fengyan's sword intent stronger. Good. In the future, when I kill the 5 mountain sword sect and obtain all of their swordsmanship, my 9-region swordsmanship can be further improved. After killing Wang Qianzhong, Chu Fengyan felt refreshed. He had been chased by this group of people for so long. Now it was finally time for him to hold his head high. Chapter 1158. Chu Fengyan looked at Master Bai. Master Bai's tongue serpent bloodline was purer than Chu Fengyan's. It was enough to suppress Chu Fengyan's tongue serpent transformation. If it wasn't for Master Bai, Chu Fengyan wouldn't have been in such a difficult situation. However, Chu Fengyan had refined the sky-devouring beast's heart and integrated it into his energy source. With the power of the sky-devouring secret skill, it was easy for him to kill these Emperor-to-be. Damn it! He has already mastered the sky-devouring secret skill. How can he be so fast? Master Bai stared at Chu Fengyan and cursed in his heart. He also had the bloodline of an innate divine beast. Naturally, he knew how domineering the bloodline of an innate divine beast was. It wasn't easy to refine it. Even he had spent years to completely refine the power of the sky-devouring beast's bloodline. However, Chu Fengyan was able to do it in an instant. How can it be such a monster? Only the old ancestors of the clan can deal with him. Let's go. Master Bai suddenly shouted. He turned into a ray of light and flew out of the palace. He had witnessed the battle between Chu Fengyan and Wang Qianzhong. Under Chu Fengyan's sky-devouring secret skill, Wang Qianzhong didn't even have the strength to fight back and was easily killed. His strength was on par with Wang Qianzhong's. He had no chance of winning against Chu Fengyan. It was not only him. The fourth prince, Prince Wei, and the others also hurriedly turned around. Like stray dogs, they hurriedly fled out of the palace. Sky-devouring. Chu Fengyan stared at the escaping escape lights. His figure remained motionless, but he quietly began to activate the power of the sky-devouring secret skill. The vortex behind Chu Fengyan suddenly began to expand and become extremely large. The enormous vortex filled the entire vicinity of the palace. Run! Master Bai, the fourth prince, and the others hurriedly operated their spiritual power to escape. However, no matter how hard they tried to escape, the giant swirl kept on covering them and dragging them back to where they came from. Damn it! How can it be so powerful? Master Bai and the fourth prince cursed under their breath. Never in their wildest dreams had they imagined that they would be forced into such a situation where they could not even escape. In this world of blood, I am invincible. None of you can leave today. Chu Fengyan sneered. Now that he had refined the heart of the heaven-devouring beast, he was incomparably close to the fresh blood realm. The fresh blood realm was originally a world created by the heaven-devouring beast. Now that Chu Fengyan had fused with the bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast, he was like a fish in water in this world of fresh blood. His strength was enough to burst out beyond his limits. Now, even if a true emperor came, Chu Fengyan had the confidence to fight him. As long as he was in the world of fresh blood, Chu Fengyan would look down on everything without any scruples. All of you, Dot. Chu Fengyan suddenly looked at Master Bai. He pointed his finger, and the devouring power around Master Bai's body expanded dozens of times. Within a blink of an eye, it covered Master Bai's body and tried to devour his body. No! Before Master Bai could finish his words, he started to scream. His body was dragged into the swirl by the sky-devouring secret art. Then he was killed instantly by the power of the sky-devouring secret art. What was left of him was a mass of blood mist which was devoured by Chu Fengyan. Good, the tongue snake bloodline fused with my body. Master Bai's body contained countless treasures, but what Chu Fengyan cared about the most was the tongue snake bloodline. Chu Fengyan suddenly grasped, and the tongue snake bloodline was directly extracted from Master Bai's blood essence. Then Chu Fengyan swallowed it into his body. Chu Fengyan had already refined the tongue snake bloodline once. This time, it was even easier for him to refine it. Good. Master Bai's tongue snake bloodline is more than 2 times purer than the young master of the whole family. Unfortunately, he hasn't stepped into the quasi-emperor realm and can't display the true power of the tongue snake bloodline. Otherwise, it would be difficult for me to deal with him. After devouring Master Bai's tongue snake bloodline, Chu Fengmian sighed in his heart. The more noble the bloodline was, the more power it needed to be used. Take the young master of the Hua family, for example. Although he had the tongue snake bloodline, he didn't have the ability to use it. Therefore, he was easily killed by Chu Fengmian. Although Master Bai could use it, he could only use 20 to 30% of the tongue snake bloodline's power. Otherwise, with his suppression on Chu Fengmian, it would be extremely difficult for Chu Fengmian to kill him. But now, Chu Fengmian had killed Master Bai and seized all of his tongue snake bloodline, fusing it into his origin. Chu Fengmian felt that although the power of the tongue snake transformation didn't change, this time, Chu Fengmian could use the tongue snake transformation for 10 minutes. Compared to before, the duration was 10 times longer, and he didn't have to worry about fighting the enemy. Damn it, he refined Master Bai's bloodline. Let's fight it out with him. If we don't, none of us will survive. Prince Wei and the other quasi-emperors stared at Chu Fengmian and roared crazily. Their eyes were already blood red. They could tell that Chu Fengmian had no intention of letting any of them off today. Instead of waiting for death, they might as well fight until the end. Whoosh! Golden flames ignited on the quasi-emperors' bodies. They were burning their origin. At this critical moment, they no longer cared about the drop in their cultivation realm. Even if they were to burn their origin, they would still fight Chu Fengmian. Under the burning of the origin source, their auras soared by 3 times. Little bastard, go to hell. Prince Wei stared at Chu Fengmian and roared ferociously. He attacked with his claw, causing the sky to explode. Terrifying spiritual energy swept towards Chu Fengmian. The other quasi-emperors were also going all out. Their final trump card, countless terrifying spiritual energies, were all directed towards Chu Fengmian. I've said before, in this world of fresh blood, I'm invincible. Your methods are useless against me, Chu Fengmian said coldly. At the same time, he chanted, tongue snake transformation. Boom! From behind Chu Fengmian, an incomparably huge tongue snake shadow condensed and shrouded Chu Fengmian's back. It caused Chu Fengmian's strength to rise crazily. Chu Fengmian slowly raised his hand, and the spiritual sword in his hand suddenly slashed across the sky. A dazzling sword light shot up to the sky, piercing through the heavens and earth, and slashed across the sky. The power of this sword shook the ancient times. Chapter 1159. Now, Chu Fengmian had merged the heaven-swallowing beast bloodline and the soaring serpent bloodline that he had just obtained from young Master Bai. The strength of the soaring serpent transformation was sufficient to support Chu Fengmian's eruption, unlike before when it was short-lived. Now, Chu Fengmian's strength was no different from that of a true quasi-emperor. Furthermore, Chu Fengmian had merged the heaven-swallowing beast bloodline. In this world of blood, he was like a fish in water. Even if he met a true sovereign, he could fight. Even 10 quasi-emperors could not be compared to a true venerable emperor. Chu Fengmian sent out a beam of sword chi that soared into the sky. The power it contained seemed like it would tear a crack in the sky. Rumble. At this moment, a 300-kilometer-long sword light swept out. This sword strike even reached the origin of the sword Dao. The might of the sword god realm was fully displayed. Furthermore, Chu Fengmian's sword intent had already reached the peak of the sword god realm. He was only one step away from the true origin of the sword Dao. The sharp sword intent slashed out together with this beam of sword light. When the fourth prince and the others saw this beam of sword light, they all felt a chill in their hearts. Then, the fourth prince's expression changed. Brat, you dare to kill me? Before the fourth prince could finish his words, the beam of sword light locked onto him and swept towards him. The surrounding space shattered as the sword light swept across it. Any resistance was mercilessly crushed by this sword light. Once one was swept up in this beam of sword light, one would not be able to resist at all and would be killed. Before the fourth prince could finish speaking, he was swept up in this beam of sword light. Then, he screamed miserably as his body was obliterated by this beam of sword light. The fourth prince of the Divine Dragon Empire was extremely noble. In the ancient monster continent, he could be considered a famous person. Now, before Chu Fengmian's sword light, the fourth prince could not even resist. Chu Fengmian mercilessly killed him, unable to retaliate at all. Damn it, brat, you actually dared to kill the fourth prince. You're finished. No matter how strong you are, you'll be buried with him after killing the fourth prince. The Divine Dragon Empire will never let you off. Prince Wei's furious voice rang out as he glared at Chu Fengmian and roared. Divine Dragon Empire? Who do you think you are? You're just a bunch of side branches. How dare you have designs on my bloodline? Chu Fengmian said disdainfully. His bloodline was probably nobler than that of the Dragon God Emperor, yet he still dared to threaten Chu Fengmian. I'll send you off now. You'll be buried with your master. As soon as Chu Fengmian finished speaking, the sword light slashed toward Prince Wei. Crack! Countless spiritual weapons on Prince Wei's body were mercilessly shattered by this sword. Then, he was mercilessly sucked into the sword light. I hate it. I should have killed you outside. Chu Fengmian, you will also be buried with me. Prince Wei howled madly as he was pierced by countless sword lights. You speak too much nonsense. Chu Fengmian could not be bothered with Prince Wei. With a casual flash of sword light, Prince Wei's body was completely obliterated. All the experts of the Divine Dragon Empire in this heaven-devouring beast's residence died to Chu Fengmian's sword. None of them managed to escape. To the Divine Dragon Empire, this was a huge loss that they had not suffered for thousands of years. Unfortunately, they had offended Chu Fengmian. Only death awaited them. Silence. Young Master Bai, Wang Qianzhong, the fourth prince, and Prince Wei all died at Chu Fengmian's hands. Now, only the other four quasi-emperors remained before Chu Fengmian. These four quasi-emperors stared at Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, one of them stepped forward and spoke to Chu Fengmian. Congratulations to young Master Chu for achieving great success. Today, we won't compete with young Master Chu anymore. Let's go, this quasi-emperor said to Chu Fengmian. Then, his figure turned into a beam of light and flew out of the palace. Just as this quasi-emperor flew out, a sword light silently appeared and pierced through his body. Young Master Chu, what is the meaning of this? The other three quasi-emperors quickly retreated, some fear in their eyes. No one will be able to block this sword light and would be mercilessly killed. With the help of the heaven-devouring beast's bloodline, Chu Fengmian's sword light could merge with the bloody world. Suddenly, he could silently kill his way out. Even these quasi-emperors could not guard against such a move. You must have felt great when you surrounded and attacked this Chu earlier, right? Why do you want to leave now? Chu Fengmian said slowly as he stared at the three quasi-emperors. You want to leave without paying a price? We were bewitched by the fourth prince for what happened earlier. We did not intend to become enemies with young Master Chu. If you need compensation, we will naturally compensate young Master Chu after we leave. One of the quasi-emperors fawned over Chu Fengmian. At the same time, murderous intent surged in his heart. The bloody world was an independent region. The experts there might not be able to do anything to Chu Fengmian. However, once they left the bloody world, they had 10,000 ways to deal with Chu Fengmian. After all, each of them had the support of a force behind them. Now that they were groveling, as long as they could leave, they would be able to get back all the humiliation. Compensation? I don't need any compensation from you. Today, I just want you to leave your lives behind. Chu Fengmian stared at the three quasi-emperors and suddenly laughed. Do you think that I will be so stupid to let you leave the bloody world to deal with me? Not to mention that these three quasi-emperors had contributed a lot when they surrounded and attacked Chu Fengmian earlier. Now, they knew all of Chu Fengmian's trump cards. Whether it was the mortal Emperor Jar or the newly obtained heart of the heaven-devouring beast, they were all Chu Fengmian's trump cards. Once they were known, Chu Fengmian would be in an extremely dangerous situation. Logically speaking, Chu Fengmian would not let these three go today. I will give you a chance. Kill yourselves. Chu Fengmian, do you really want to fight to the death? Behind me is the Sun family. You have already offended the Five Mountain Sword sect. How dare you offend the Sun family? The quasi-emperor said coldly as he stared at Chu Fengmian. It will be good for everyone if we both take a step back now. Otherwise, we will really fight to the death. So what if we fight to the death? Chu Fengyan interrupted the quasi-emperor. Murderous intent surged in his eyes. Sun family. Anyway, I've killed a lot of people from the Sun family. Since you're from the Sun family, then go down and accompany them. Chapter 1160. The Sun Clan. Previously, Chu Fengyan had saved the Sun Clan from a group of blood-soaked demonic beasts. In the end, they betrayed him. Chu Fengyan did not have any good impression of the Sun Clan. Chu Fengyan's character was clear about gratitude and grudges. He hated betrayals the most. If the Sun Clan had not been mentioned, Chu Fengyan might have asked the Sun Clan quasi-emperor to say a few more words. But now, Chu Fengyan could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. Die! Chu Fengyan's figure rushed out, turning into a phantom and directly rushed up. At the same time, the spiritual sword in Chu Fengyan's hand also moved. In an instant, a sky full of sword light condensed. These sword light contained extreme killing intent and slashed towards the Sun Clan quasi-emperor at the same time. This kid has gone crazy. Let's fight it out with him. Even if we die today, we will fight to the death with him. The Sun Clan quasi-emperor's face revealed a bit of madness. His figure rushed towards Chu Fengyan fiercely. At the same time, the spiritual energy in his body began to expand continuously. The spiritual energy in the Sun Clan quasi-emperor's body was already extremely violent. This spiritual energy could erupt at any time and destroy everything around it. Kid, have a taste of self-destruction. You will be buried with me. The power of a quasi-emperor's self-destruction was shocking and extremely terrifying. Chu Fengyan had almost died in the hands of the heavenly demon's supremacy. Even a true martial emperor would have to retreat and flee in the face of a quasi-emperor's self-detonation. And in this thousand-beast cave, there was no place to hide. Now, the Sun Clan quasi-emperor had made up his mind to drag Chu Fengyan down with him. Self-destruction. Staring at the Sun Clan quasi-emperor, Chu Fengyan suddenly shook his head. Your so-called life and death struggle. Is this all you have? Chu Fengyan said calmly. Right beside the Sun Clan quasi-emperor, the sky-devouring secret technique condensed again. A terrifying vortex contained endless devouring power. Suddenly, all the power in the surroundings was devoured by this terrifying vortex. The Sun Clan quasi-emperor's figure was also mercilessly devoured by this vortex. Boom! An extremely terrifying spiritual energy suddenly exploded from the Sun Clan quasi-emperor's body. However, no matter how terrifying the power was, he could not escape the vortex's devouring power. The Sun Clan quasi-emperor originally wanted to fight to the death with Chu Fengyan, but he was mercilessly devouring sky-devouring secret technique. Chu Fengyan's sky-devouring secret technique could devour everything. Now, even the self-destruction of a quasi-emperor would be mercilessly devoured. You too, do you have any last words? Any last words? Chu Fengyan collected all the essence blood of the Sun Clan boundary emperor before looking at the remaining two boundary emperors. As the two quasi-emperor, the quasi-emperors, as long as you have quasi-we of, as long as you as. They're gods as they and kings of, a's of it, of and have they, it, of there. However, the quasi-emperor of the Sun Clan was unable to harm Chu Fengyan at all even after using his self-detonation technique. For the two quasi-emperors, it was as if all their means were meaningless in front of Chu Fengyan. The two of them were disheartened. Originally, they wanted to fight to the death with Chu Fengyan. However, after seeing the fate of the Sun Clan quasi-emperor, there was only fear left in their hearts. Oh, you two are willing to submit? Chu Fengyan looked at the two quasi-emperors. Suddenly, his eyes flickered as if he was thinking about it. Suddenly, a jet of black spiritual energy slowly condensed in Chu Fengyan's palm. It turned into two marks and flew toward the two quasi-emperors. The marks were inserted into the deepest part of their spirit veins. Heavenly Death Seal. Once the Heavenly Death Seal was placed on the spirit veins, It could only be removed by someone who was strong enough to crush Chu Fengmian. Otherwise, they would have to obey Chu Fengmian's orders for the rest of their lives. I'll give the two of you a chance to serve me. Serve me well and work for me. This will be a great opportunity for you. Chu Fengmian looked at the two quasi-emperors and said slowly, "Yes." The two quasi-emperors nodded hurriedly. However, they smiled bitterly in their hearts. They had been placed under Chu Fengmian's restriction in their spirit veins. Even if they wanted to go back on their word, they couldn't do it. "Tell me, where are you two from?" Chu Fengmian asked directly. "Master, my name is Qing Song. I'm the supreme elder of the Qing clan, one of the 8 great royal families." "My name is Jin Yuan. I'm the supreme elder of the Jin clan, one of the 8 great royal families." Hearing Chu Fengmian's question, Qing Song and Jin Yuan both answered respectfully. "Qing clan, Jin clan." Chu Fengmian remembered that the 8 great royal families were divided into by Qing, Hua, Lei, Feng, Xian, Mo, and Jin clans. The 8 great royal families were led by the Bai clan. Chu Fengmian knew nothing about the rest. "Tell me about the 8 great royal families." Chu Fengmian's understanding of the 8 great royal families came from the memories of the Hua clan's young master and Lei Yin. Although the Hua clan's young master had some status, he wasn't very strong. He didn't know much about the 8 great royal families. Yes, the 8 great royal families are divided into 3 upper clans and 5 lower clans. The Bai, Mo, and Xian clans are the 3 upper clans. This is because there are true venerable emperors in these 3 clans. Although our Qing clan is also one of the 8 great royal families, our status is completely different. The ancient Serpent Empire is also in the hands of these 3 clans. Pine Tree respectfully told him everything that he had said. Venerable emperors. Chu Fengmian's eyes showed some fear. He originally thought that only the Bai clan had true venerable emperors. He didn't expect that the Mo and Xian clans also had true venerable emperors. Although quasi-emperors were also called venerable emperors, they were fake and were also called false emperors. Only when one stepped into the emperor realm would one be called a true emperor. A true emperor was much more terrifying than 10 quasi-emperors. For example, Chu Fengmian didn't put quasi-emperors in his eyes in the world of fresh blood, but if a true emperor came, Chu Fengmian would be in great trouble. Moreover, once he left the world of fresh blood, the power of the heaven-devouring beast bloodline would be greatly affected. It seemed that Chu Fengmian easily killed the Sun clan's quasi-emperor and the 4th prince, but Chu Fengmian knew that this was only possible with the help of the heaven-devouring beast bloodline and the world of fresh blood. Outside, Chu Fengmian couldn't use the heaven-devouring secret technique so recklessly. He could only use it 2 or 3 times a day. Chapter 1161. The ancient monster continent is indeed a place full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. However, true emperors are all old antiques and shouldn't appear on a normal day. Chu Fengmian sighed inwardly. The number of experts in the ancient monster continent far exceeded Chu Fengmian's imagination. Just the ancient Serpent Empire alone had so many experts. There were also the Divine Dragon Empire and the Heavenly Peng Empire. These 2 empires were on equal footing with the ancient Serpent Empire. Therefore, the ancient Serpent Empire also had a lot of experts. Moreover, there was another transcendent power outside of these 3 empires, the Sacred Dragon's Secret Realm. Chu Fengmian had learned some things about the Sacred Dragon's Secret Realm from the memories of many quasi-emperors. For many quasi-emperors, their understanding of the Sacred Dragon's Secret Realm was vague. However, no matter who it was, they all had the same thought. They couldn't offend the Sacred Dragon's Secret Realm. The experts in the Sacred Dragon's Secret Realm were even more powerful than the 3 empires. Once I reach the Paramount Realm, I will be able to protect myself against true emperors even if I leave the kingdom of fresh blood. Chu Fengmian thought to himself and suddenly ordered Jin Yuan and Qing Song in front of him. "The 2 of you guard the outside. Don't let anyone in." "Yes." The 2 immediately went to the cave to guard the area after hearing Chu Fengmian's order. Meanwhile, Chu Fengmian began to set up restrictions. After spending 2 hours, Chu Fengmian had already set up an inescapable area around the palace. Chu Fengmian had collected countless blood crystals in the longevity cavern. It was time for him to refine them. Chu Fengmian waved his hand in the air, and countless blood crystals flew out in front of him. Of course, there were also many bloodstones mixed in. These were all Chu Fengmian's harvest from the world of fresh blood. He had collected hundreds of thousands of blood crystals in the Myriad Beast Cavern. The blood crystals collected by the quasi-emperors had all fallen into Chu Fengmian's hands. The value of hundreds of thousands of blood crystals was comparable to tens of millions of bloodstones. Such a large amount of blood crystals was definitely enough to support the advancement of Chu Fengmian's bloodline. Let's begin, Chu Fengmian silently ordered. Suddenly, a vortex formed in front of Chu Fengmian. The sky-devouring secret technique was activated. The sky-devouring secret skill was not only useful against enemies, but it could also be used to refine spiritual power. For example, the sky-devouring divine python that Chu Fengmian had condensed could condense spiritual power and devour treasures. The heaven-devouring godly python was only a demonic beast that possessed a portion of the bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast. However, what Chu Fengmian was controlling right now was the true heaven-devouring secret skill, which was the bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast. Swallow. As the huge vortex started to spin, countless blood crystals were sucked into it. The moment the blood crystals and bloodstones were swallowed by the vortex, they started to spin. Then, they shattered and turned into the purest spiritual energy. Boom! An endless stream of blood crystals and bloodstones were sucked into the vortex and turned into the purest spirit energy, which began to merge with Chu Fengmian's bloodline. At the same time, the power of the Battle Dragon art was fully utilized by Chu Fengmian as he began to merge the power of the blood crystal and the Battle Dragon bloodline. Roar! The ancient war dragon shadow behind Chu Fengmian roared continuously. The appearance of the ancient war dragon phantasm was constantly changing. Its entire body was undergoing a metamorphosis. As the power of the blood crystal and bloodstone started to transform, the 9,999 formations also started to change. 10,000th formation. Boom! Another formation was condensed. The ancient war dragon shadow behind Chu Fengmian had already condensed 10,000 formations. However, this was only the beginning. Chu Fengmian now had an endless supply of bloodstones. Tens of millions of bloodstones. Even if he swept across the entire world of blood, he might not be able to obtain so many. Now, Chu Fengmian was devouring without any scruples. Almost in an instant, he had devoured millions of bloodstones. 12,000, 13,000, 14,000. Countless formations were being formed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Almost at every moment, Chu Fengmian's power was undergoing earth-shattering changes. How can Master's power grow so fast? Not far away, Jin Yuan and Qing Song had already set up an inescapable net outside. The two of them felt a little frightened when they felt the power erupting from Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's power was undergoing earth-shattering changes almost every moment. In less than half an hour, Chu Fengmian's power was already 50 to 60% stronger than before. One must know that Chu Fengmian was already able to kill a quasi-emperor like killing an ant. If he continued to grow, wouldn't he be able to contend with a true emperor? Especially now, Chu Fengmian was only at the heavenly mandate realm. There is still a distance between him and the immortal realm, let alone the emperor realm. Master's talent is really terrifying. He's definitely more terrifying than those monsters in the Sacred Dragon's secret domain. Following him may be the best choice for us. Jin Yuan looked at Chu Fengmian from the side. He had already submitted wholeheartedly. To them, submitting to such a master was no longer a humiliation, but a respect for the strong. Moreover, Chu Fengmian was still so young. His future was limitless. Perhaps it was a better opportunity for them to follow Chu Fengmian. Some rascals are coming. Qing Song looked at the Myriad Beast cave. It seemed that many masters had already sensed their aura and were rushing over to join in the fun. They even wanted to see if there were any opportunities Kill them all. Master's breakthrough cannot be disturbed. After saying that, Jin Yuan and Qing Song rushed out. Countless battles broke out in the myriad beasts cave again. Chu Fengmian, on the other hand, did not pay attention to any of this. All his attention was focused on the advancement of his bloodline. After devouring 1,000,000 bloodstones, Chu Fengmian's bloodline advanced again. The ancient war dragon phantom behind Chu Fengmian had already condensed 20,000 spirit arrays. But for Chu Fengmian, this was still not enough to satisfy him. Chu Fengmian could feel that his bloodline was far from reaching its limit. What Chu Fengmian wanted to do was to push his bloodline to its ultimate limit. Continue. Countless beads of sweat dripped down Chu Fengmian's face. This transformation brought about great pain. Chapter 1162. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Chu Fengmian had no idea how many bloodstones he had devoured. At least half of the bloodstones in front of him were gone. This meant that Chu Fengmian had already devoured a total of 20,000,000 bloodstones. Chu Fengmian did not expect it to be so difficult to upgrade his bloodline. Even the ancient serpent chamber of commerce would faint from fright after hearing the number of 20,000,000 bloodstones. It was almost impossible for them to fork out 200,000 bloodstones, let alone 20,000,000. However, Chu Fengmian could still feel that his battle dragon bloodline was still not satisfied after devouring 20,000,000 bloodstones. Chu Fengmian finally felt that his battle dragon bloodline was finally satisfied after devouring 30,000,000 bloodstones. 30,000,000 bloodstones are needed to rank up my bloodline again. Without the 1,000 Beast Grotto, it would be impossible for me to rank up my bloodline to the limit. Chu Fengmian mumbled to himself. 30,000,000 bloodstones were equivalent to at least 1,000 treasure lands. It was unknown whether there were even 1,000 treasure lands in the entire blood world. Even if there were, it was possible. Even if there were, Chu Fengmian would need at least a few hundred years to find 1,000 treasure grounds. The trip to the 1,000 Beast Grotto had brought Chu Fengmian endless benefits. He had obtained 40,000,000 bloodstones and the heart of the heaven-devouring beast, which allowed him to merge the bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast with it. The people of the ancient Snake Merchant Association had been scheming against Chu Fengmian for a long time, but they had never expected that Chu Fengmian had benefited greatly from them. Humph! The people of the ancient Snake Merchant Association have taken my wealth and set me up. Very well. Once I leave this place, the first thing I'll do is to destroy the ancient Snake Merchant Association. Even President Ouyang won't stand a chance against me. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with murderous intent. If they gave Chu Fengmian some face, Chu Fengmian would still be merciful. However, if they tried to set him up, Chu Fengmian would return the favor 1,000 times over. Chu Fengmian would seek revenge for the slightest mistake. The power of my bloodline has reached its limit. Time to rank up. A trace of clarity appeared in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Numerous spirit designs flew out from Chu Fengmian's body. These formations were formed from the power of the battle dragon bloodline. They began to penetrate into the ancient battle dragon's shadow. This time, he flew out of the 10,000 Dao formation again. At the same time, drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence began to condense. This also meant that Chu Fengmian's bloodline power had already been upgraded to the limit. Although the bloodstone was divine, it wasn't limitless in enhancing one's bloodline. Now, after devouring 30,000,000 bloodstones, Chu Fengmian's bloodline had reached its peak. His potential had also reached its limit. His power began to gather as he prepared for a breakthrough. I am a battle dragon. Drops of ancient war dragon blood essence were condensed continuously. The amount of ancient war dragon blood essence in Chu Feng's body had reached a total of 110,000 drops. The moment the 10,000 drops of primordial battle dragon's blood essence were condensed, Chu Fengmian's cultivation underwent a sudden change. The paramount realm. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's cultivation had reached the paramount realm. At the same time, the ancient battle dragon's shadow behind Chu Fengmian also began to complete its transformation. At that moment, the land of the ancient war dragon's silhouette contained a total of 36,000 formations. It was more than 3 times more than before. This was the limit of what the Bloodstones could achieve. Chu Fengmian's cultivation and bloodline had transformed at the same time. This is the power of the Paramount Realm. If it was an ordinary breakthrough, my strength would at most double. But now, it is 5 times stronger than before. The upgrade of my bloodline is so amazing. Now, my bloodline is not inferior to the legendary king of ancient battle dragons. Feeling the power in his body, Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. Now that his bloodline and cultivation had been upgraded at the same time, Chu Fengmian's strength had also undergone a tremendous change. Now, even outside the world of fresh blood, all the quasi-emperors were still ants in front of Chu Fengmian. His future opponents were only true emperors who were worthy of being his opponents. Although Chu Fengmian's cultivation was not at the Emperor Realm, it was better than the Emperor Realm. Boom, 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 boom. 9 deafening thunderclaps suddenly exploded in Chu Fengmian's head. Above Chu Fengmian's head, layers of thunderclouds began to condense. The power of each thundercloud seemed to have the power to shake the world and shatter the sky. Even each tribulation thunder contained the power of creation, the strongest power in the world. Master has only broken through to the Paramount Realm. How can he trigger a thunder tribulation? Outside, Qing Song and Jin Yuan heard the commotion inside, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. The two of them had only triggered a thunder tribulation when they stepped into the Emperor Realm and became quasi-emperors. But now, Chu Fengmian had only broken through to the Paramount Realm, and he had actually triggered a thunder tribulation. Moreover, the power of this thunder tribulation was hundreds of times stronger than when they stepped into the Emperor Realm. It seems that Master's aptitude is too monstrous. But this is the heavens' jealousy tribulation. Even the heavens are jealous of Master's strength. Qing Song stared at the tribulation clouds with a nervous gaze. This thunder tribulation was 100 times more terrifying than a quasi-emperor's tribulation. Even if the two of them had become quasi-emperors, they could only tremble under this thunder tribulation. If the power of the lightning tribulation wanted to crush them, it would not be an easy task. Boom! While they were discussing, the thunder tribulation had already descended. Bolts of thunder tribulation came down one after another. It was no longer the usual purple, but a kind of gray and chaotic color. The 9 heavens chaos tribulation. How is this possible? Isn't this the real Emperor tribulation? Stepping into the Emperor realm, one has to bear the tribulation thunder. Countless monstrous quasi-emperors have died under this thunder tribulation. But now, Master has triggered such a terrifying thunder tribulation. Looking at the descending thunder tribulation, Jin Yuan and Qing Song had already begun to tremble. Their voices were full of disbelief. Rumor had it that the 9 heavens chaos tribulation could only appear when a quasi-emperor stepped into the true emperor realm. Chapter 1163. Those who could survive this tribulation were geniuses among geniuses. Their future was limitless. If Chu Fengmian was a quasi-emperor, Pine Tree and Jin Yuan wouldn't be so shocked. However, he had just stepped into the celestial realm. Just stepping into the Empyrean stage and attracting such a terrifying lightning tribulation. This was something that had never happened before. It was beyond their understanding and imagination. Someone's undergoing a 9 heavens chaos tribulation here. A true emperor. It's really a true emperor tribulation. Who is it? This person must be very weak after surviving the tribulation. If we can kill him and get his essence blood, we'll be able to attempt the tribulation in the future. Choosing to undergo the tribulation in the world of fresh blood, he must have reached the level of an oil lamp. Charge! Suddenly, several voices were heard outside the Thousand Beasts cave. Then, 7 or 8 quasi-emperors suddenly rushed into the Thousand Beasts cave. These were the ones who attacked the myriad beasts earlier. Even the myriad beasts were killed by the joint attack of so many quasi-emperors. Now that they sensed the aura of a true emperor tribulation in the grotto, they decided to take a share of the loot. A cultivator was at their weakest during a tribulation. If they took the opportunity to attack, there was a 99% chance that they could kill the person undergoing the tribulation. Therefore, under normal circumstances, even if some cultivators were to undergo tribulation, they would choose a quiet place to do so. However, the Myriad Beast Cave was obviously not one of them. Even Chu Fengyan himself didn't expect to attract a true Emperor tribulation as soon as he stepped into the celestial realm. However, now that things had come to this, Chu Fengyan was fully prepared to deal with the descent of the primal chaos, heavenly lightning. Boom! Streaks of primal chaos, heavenly lightning bombarded Chu Fengyan's body. Any one of these streaks of primal chaos, heavenly lightning, could easily kill a quasi-emperor. However, Chu Fengyan was using his physical body to contend against the primal chaos, heavenly lightning. Bolts of primal chaos, heavenly lightning struck Chu Fengyan's body. A layer of flowing light appeared on Chu Fengyan's body to contend against the primal chaos, heavenly lightning. At the same time, Chu Fengyan could vaguely sense that the divine tree was devouring the power of the chaotic heavenly lightning. This surprised and delighted Chu Fengyan. He suddenly reacted. The power of the divine tree was the purest form of Xiantian power. The same was true for the chaotic heavenly thunder. Although the power of the chaotic heavenly thunder was extremely domineering to the divine tree, it could be turned into nutrients for the divine tree if it was refined by the divine tree, allowing it to evolve continuously. That was why Chu Fengyan didn't choose to break the chaotic heavenly thunder with his swordsmanship. Instead, he used his physical body to endure it. Master has begun his tribulation. The commotion is simply too great. There should be at least a few hundred primal chaos, heavenly thunders. I've once seen a peerless expert undergoing a tribulation. Even so, he didn't have such a terrifying might. Gold ingot and pine tree trembled when they sensed the aura within. Not good. Many experts are approaching. Oh no, Master's movements are too loud and have attracted a lot of people. No, we can't let them get close to Master. Gold ingot and pine tree's expression changed. They immediately channeled their power to the extreme and set up layers of seals to seal off Chu Fengyan's location. Chu Fengyan had already sensed the commotion outside. As Jin Yuan and the owner of the pine tree, he could transmit their thoughts to Chu Fengyan. He also noticed that many quasi-emperors with ill intentions were approaching. The essence blood of a near emperor, or even an emperor, was a supreme treasure for them. Whoever obtained it would have a chance to become a true emperor. Not even 1 out of 10 quasi-emperors would be able to overcome the tribulation and become a true emperor. This was a supreme opportunity for them, and was enough for them to take the risk out of desperation. However, Chu Fengyan couldn't spare any attention. The chaotic heavenly thunder bombarded Chu Fengyan's body. Although the divine tree's power absorbed most of the impact, it still left a few wounds on Chu Fengyan's body. However, it also caused countless scars to appear on Chu Fengyan's body. That said, it also brought Chu Fengyan some benefits. Under the bombardment of the chaotic heavenly thunder, the divine tree's power rose steadily. Countless ancient runes appeared on the divine tree. It was said that the most primitive divine tree could pierce through the heaven and earth. Even connate divine beasts couldn't fight against it, let alone mere tribulation lightning. The continuous bombardment of tribulation lightning washed away the divine tree, causing its power to become purer and purer. Boom! The moment a massive chaotic heavenly thunder bombarded the divine tree, the countless branches of the divine tree suddenly began to dance. Tender leaves began to appear on the tree. The withered tree began to flourish with vitality. The divine tree's heavenly might. Chu Fengyan suddenly opened his eyes. The power of the divine tree had fused with Chu Fengyan. With the support of the divine tree, Chu Fengyan's power was almost at the peak. He abruptly raised his head and glared at the tribulation lightning. The tribulation lightning seemed to be provoked by Chu Fengyan's actions. It condensed an endless stream of chaotic heavenly thunder and bombarded Chu Fengyan. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of chaotic heavenly thunder bombarded Chu Fengyan's body. However, there was no sign of pain on Chu Fengyan's face. On the contrary, he was incomparably delighted. The chaotic heavenly thunder bombarded Chu Fengyan's body and was immediately converted into the purest innate divine power by the divine tree. The divine tree seemed to be the nemesis of all heavenly tribulations. No matter how strong the tribulation was, it would be refined by the divine tree. The power of hundreds of chaotic heavenly thunder blended into Chu Fengyan's body, causing his power to reach its peak in an instant. Break! Chu Fengyan suddenly made a move. In an instant, his palm blasted out from the air. Rumble! The chaos heavenly lightning that filled the sky was unable to withstand Chu Fengyan's palm strike and shattered one after another. Even the tribulation clouds had a hole in them. He's about to finish his tribulation. He's at his weakest right now. Attack! True Emperor Blood Essence. He's going to become a true emperor after his tribulation. Kill him. Several figures suddenly rushed towards the myriad beast grotto after seeing the tribulation clouds dissipate. Don't even think about it. Goldorgan and Pine roared and attacked. Countless streams of spiritual energy collided in the air. Chapter 1164. After transcending the tribulation, a cultivator would fall into a state of extreme weakness. This weakness was even more pronounced during the tribulation. On the other side of the phone, transcending the tribulation meant that the cultivator had undergone a complete transformation. The newly transformed cultivator would be the weakest. Therefore, many cultivators would choose a place to hide after transcending the tribulation. Otherwise, they might be killed by their former enemies. Jin Yuan and Pine Tree clearly understood this, which was why they took action to stop these people from entering. The spiritual energies in the sky constantly collided. Jin Yuan, Pine Tree, do the two of you think you can stop me? Suddenly, with a furious roar, a white-haired old man abruptly threw out a palm strike. The power of this palm strike was extremely strong. Even though Jin Yuan and Pine Tree had joined forces, they were still forced back and coughed up blood. A clear palm print was left on their chests. The power of this palm strike was almost enough to shatter Jin Yuan and Pine Tree's internal organs. The white-haired old man's power was simply too shocking. Two quasi-emperors working together couldn't kill this white-haired old man. Blood Devil Sovereign. Damn it. Why is this old devil here? Jin Yuan and Pine Tree's expressions changed. The two of them recognized him at a glance. The white-haired old man was the Blood Demon Reverend, a famous great demon. Although Blood Devil Sovereign had yet to step into the true Emperor realm, he had always represented the peak of quasi-emperors and was known as the #1 existence below the true Emperor realm. Blood Devil Sovereign didn't choose to transcend the tribulation because he was accumulating his foundation. Now that the 9 heavens chaos tribulation had attracted him, he had to come. I didn't think that you two pieces of trash would become gatekeepers. Forget it. I'll kill you two first. Paragon Blood Devil stared at Gold Ingot and Pine Tree, then suddenly laughed coldly and attacked. Quasi-Emperor blood wasn't as precious as a true Emperor's blood, but it was still a rare treasure. The moment the Blood Demon Reverend struck out, 2 gigantic blood palms struck out in the air. Blood chi filled the air. His casual attack was earth-shattering. Although Blood Devil Sovereign wasn't a true emperor yet, he was infinitely close. An old devil dares to kill my people? Just as the 2 bloody handprints were about to hit Jin Yuan and Qing Song, an enormous dragon claw suddenly appeared. As the battle dragon claw was formed, it swept out and shattered the 2 gigantic bloody palms in the air, turning into bloody mist that scattered in the air. Blood Demon Lord's blood handprint was broken by someone? What a strong power! He can actually contend against the Blood Demon Sovereign? It seems that this person is the one undergoing the tribulation. While countless people were discussing, a figure slowly appeared in front of Jin Yuan and Qing Song. 2 heaven-grade spiritual pills appeared in Chu Fengyan's hand. He suddenly pointed his finger, and the pills flew into Jin Yuan and Qing Song's bodies. The 2 heaven-grade spirit pellets were broken by Chu Fengyan's palm. They were refined and turned into pure spiritual energy, which merged with Jin Yuan and Qing Song's bodies. Their injuries began to heal. You're the one transcending the tribulation inside. Blood Demon Sovereign sized Chu Fumian up and sneered. Paramount Realm. Looks like a piece of trash, like you overestimated yourself. You wanted to forcefully transcend the true Emperor Tribulation, but you failed in the end. However, you're still alive. Looks like you have some tricks up your sleeve. Blood Demon Sovereign wasn't surprised at Chu Fumian's cultivation. Anything could happen during the tribulation. Dropping in cultivation, losing memories, and destroying one's physical body were all possible. Blood Demon Sovereign looked at Chu Fumian and thought that Chu Fumian's cultivation dropped back to Paramount Realm after failing the tribulation. There was nothing to be surprised about. Blood Demon Sovereign, why don't we work together? Suddenly, a few more quasi-emperors appeared beside the Blood Demon Supremacy. They stared at Blood Demon Sovereign with fear in their eyes. Clearly, Blood Demon Sovereign wasn't someone to be trifled with. Sun Yang? Blood Demon Sovereign stared at the Boundary Emperor named Sun Yang and sneered. What deal? Of course it's this person. Why don't we work together and kill him? Blood Demon Sovereign, we know that you're trying to find a way to become a true emperor. This person might have failed the tribulation, but his memories will be of great use to you. Sun Yang looked at Blood Demon Sovereign and spoke as if Chu Fumian was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. We don't want his memories, only his essence blood. Kill him, and you'll have his memories, and we'll have his essence blood. How about it? Since I'm trying to become a true emperor, I don't care for his essence blood. Very well, I'll sell you a favor today. But remember, you must repay this favor in the future. Blood Demon Sovereign pondered for a moment before replying. Very well. Our Sun Clan owes you a favor. Sun Yang nodded. A bunch of trash. Are you thinking about how you're going to die? Chu Fumian sneered and stared at Blood Demon Sovereign and Sun Yang. Impudent. You think you're someone after failing the tribulation? You're just an ant in the Paramount Realm. How dare you run your mouth? Sun Yang's eyes were ferocious like a wolf's as he stared at Chu Fumian with greed. Looks like you can't wait to die. Follow this brat and don't waste time talking. Just kill him. Blood Demon Sovereign snorted and didn't waste any more words. All of a sudden, a surge of spiritual energy blasted through the air. It turned into a huge bloody handprint and blasted towards Chu Fumian. This bloody handprint was many times more powerful than the one that had struck Jin Yuan and Qing Song. What the Blood Demon Supremacy had displayed just now wasn't his full strength. Now this was his true strength. Blood Qi churned. This bloody handprint was located at the heart of the countless blood Qi. It swept up the blood Qi and bombarded Chu Fumian. Master, be careful. Blood Demon Sovereign is invincible among quasi-emperors. Jin Yuan's expression changed greatly when he saw Blood Demon Sovereign's attack. The power of this palm was many times stronger than when it struck him just now. If Blood Demon Sovereign had used his full strength, the two of them would have been dead by now. This kind of strength could be considered invincible among quasi-emperors. Invincible among quasi-emperors. Chu Fumian's face revealed a hint of mockery. If it was before, Chu Fumian might have been afraid, but now. Chapter 1165. Chu Fumian suddenly raised his hand and pointed with a finger. His spirit energy collided with a bloody handprint in the air. Crack! Wherever this finger touched, the bloody handprint actually began to shatter layer by layer in front of everyone's disbelieving eyes. The power of a single finger was enough to break through Sovereign Blood Devil's full power. The entire world trembled because of this finger. Shaking the world? Isn't that something only a true emperor can do? Didn't he fail to break through? How is this possible? Sovereign Blood Devil stared at Chu Fumian in disbelief. In his opinion, Chu Fumian must have failed to break through to the true Emperor realm. Although he couldn't be considered an ordinary Paramount realm, he was still an invincible quasi-emperor. Dealing with Chu Fumian should have been a piece of cake. He didn't expect that Chu Fumian didn't fail to break through to the true Emperor realm, but rather that he was a Paramount realm cultivator. Chu Fumian was already strong enough to kill quasi-emperors when he was at the Heaven's Mandate realm, let alone now that he had broken through again. The power of the chaos heavenly lightning had been devoured by the divine tree. causing Chu Fengmian's power to transform again. This person's strength is indeed strange, but he's only a paramount realm cultivator. Sun Yang, why aren't you going to deal with him? Blood Demon Senior suddenly roared. As long as Chu Fengmian wasn't a true emperor, he could still kill him. Moreover, he wasn't the only one who wanted to kill Chu Fengmian this time. Heaven Origin Strike. At this moment, a surge of spiritual energy suddenly erupted. With a slight movement, this spiritual energy transformed into a long spear and pierced towards Chu Fengmian. Layers of space were instantly pierced through by the spear. It was as though nothing could stop the power of the spear. How can a firefly compete with the moon? Chu Fengmian's expression didn't change when he saw the spear. A huge dragon claw condensed above Chu Fengmian's head. The power of 36,000 spirit designs was activated in an instant on the dragon claw. Rumble! The moment the dragon claw was formed, it was as if an ancient door had been opened. From a most ancient and powerful era, an endless stream of power had gathered. Heaven and Earth Claw. Chu Fengmian's bloodline had evolved, and the progenitor Tianlong's bloodline in his body had grown even stronger. He could now use the second move of progenitor Tianlong, claw rending heaven and earth. Ancestor Tianlong had 7 secret skills in total. The sky-ripping claw was the first one, and the earth-ripping claw was the second one. Chu Fengmian could only use the second version of Tianlong's secret law at best. Nevertheless, it was invincible against anyone below true emperor. Even a real venerable sovereign would not be able to compete with the power of this claw. It was an extremely terrifying claw. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly, and the dragon claw slashed through the air. At this moment, the entire heaven and earth were being ripped apart as they tore out at that spear. Crack! The moment the dragon claw collided with the spear conjured by Sun Yang was instantly shattered mercilessly. In fact, Sun Yang was not even able to contend against Chu Feng's attack. He was directly crushed and exploded in midair. In fact, the power of the backlash sent Sun Yang flying. What martial technique is this? A Khanate Divine Beast's martial technique? Progenitor Tianlong's sky-ripping secret art? Sun Yang was sent flying. His eyes were filled with shock. The power of this claw was terrifying to the extreme. He could even feel an ancient aura from it. This ancient aura was something that only appeared at the beginning of the world. It belonged to a Khanate divine beast. You dare to be impudent with such a petty trick? Chu Fengmian stared at Sun Yang with disdain. Chu Fengmian didn't even use half of his strength in this move. He only used 30% of his strength to send Sun Yang flying. If Chu Fengmian had used his full strength earlier, Sun Yang would have been killed by him already. Chu Fengmian also wanted to test the extent of his current strength. However, this result was enough to make Chu Fengmian happy. With the transformation of his bloodline and the baptism of the chaotic heavenly thunder, Chu Fengmian's current strength was self-evident. Even though he hadn't stepped into the Emperor realm, in terms of strength, the current Chu Fengmian was no different from a true emperor. He was enough to be called an uncrowned emperor. The Sun family has always been against me. It seems that I really need to teach them a lesson. Murderous intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. In his heart, he hated the Sun family the most. For example, the Bai family, Five Mountain Sword sect, and the others, Chu Fengmian could accept that they fought with him for treasures. After all, humans die for wealth and birds die for food. However, the people of the Sun family betrayed him and even wanted to go against him. This was the most shameful thing for Chu Fengmian. What's more, they came to deal with Chu Fengmian one after another. If he didn't teach them a lesson, they would really think that Chu Fengmian was easy to bully. Kneel for me. Chu Fengmian suddenly roared. His roar suddenly turned into a terrifying dragon roar that resounded through the world. Sun Yang could only feel an immense pressure enveloping his body from this roar, causing him to involuntarily kneel down. Damn it! The people of my Sun family have noble bloodlines. No one can make us kneel. Chu Fengmian, do you know that you're courting death by doing this to me? You will never be able to imagine the strength of our Sun family. Sun Yang stared at Chu Fengmian and roared madly. Under this furious roar, Sun Yang's strength even rose steadily. He was actually vaguely contending against Chu Feng's draconic might. Noble bloodline? An ant like you dares to call yourself noble? Kneel for me. Chu Fengmian looked at Sun Yang and laughed. Noble bloodline? Can Chu Fengmian get it? As for threats? Chu Fengmian had never been afraid of threats in his life. Kneel! Chu Fengmian shouted the word kneel angrily. This word continued to condense in the air and turned into a huge pagoda. The pagoda rushed towards Sun Yang and suppressed him. Sun Yang's power was completely suppressed, no matter how he resisted. Chapter 1166. Oh God, Sun Yang is actually kneeling. That's Sun Yang, a supreme genius from the Sun clan. Rumor has it that he's on the verge of becoming a true emperor. He's highly valued by the Sun clan, but now he's been subdued. Sun Yang has always claimed that he's invincible among quasi-emperors, on the same level as Blood Devil Sovereign. How can he be defeated so easily? With such means, did he really fail his tribulation and only reach the Empyrean realm? This is the power of a true emperor. Countless eyes stared at Chu Fengmian with fear. It didn't matter what his cultivation level was, his power was definitely at the level of an imperial sovereign. With this kind of power, it didn't matter if he failed the tribulation. Who could say that he wasn't a true emperor right now? Defeating a quasi-emperor was as easy as crushing an ant. Only a true emperor could do something like this. Animal, you dare to make me kneel? Sun Yang knelt on the ground, his face flushed red. He was the genius of the Sun family, a peerless genius. He had never knelt before. Even his parents couldn't make him kneel. He was destined to become a venerable emperor in the future. Such nobility and pride were all shattered in front of Chu Fengmian. Die! I'll kill you! An ancient talisman appeared from Sun Yang's back. The moment this ancient jade talisman appeared, the power of heaven and earth suddenly descended. The surrounding power of heaven and earth was like stars surrounding the moon, setting off this jade talisman. An old figure emerged from the talisman. An avatar? An avatar of a true emperor? Chu Fengmian's eyes became serious after seeing the old figure. Chu Fengmian didn't care about quasi-emperors right now, but he didn't dare to be careless against a true emperor. A true emperor was countless times stronger than a quasi-emperor. Moreover, the difference between the strongest and the weakest was like heaven and earth in the land of true emperors. Chu Fengmian was at the true emperor level right now. However, he could only be considered low level in the land of true emperors. At the very least, he was far from being comparable to the ancient Serpent King of the ancient Serpent Empire. Initially, Chu Fengmian thought that the ancient Serpent King wouldn't be too strong since the ancient Serpent Empire only had true emperors. But now, the Mo and Xian clans both had true emperors. The ancient Serpent Emperor was still able to rule over the entire ancient Serpent Empire. This meant that he was truly invincible. Sun Yang's avatar was personally refined by a true emperor. His status in the Sun clan exceeded Chu Fengmian's expectations. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian's power has reached grand completion. He wanted to fight one himself. Grand Elder, this person insulted our Sun family's bloodline. Grand Elder, please kill him. When Sun Yang saw the old man materialize, he knelt down and said respectfully. When the old man heard Sun Yang's words, his eyes were filled with boundless rage. Just his eyes alone seemed to be enough to ignite everything. This person's control over the power of heaven and earth had reached an unimaginable level. Compared to Chu Fengmian, it was unknown how many times stronger he was. Right now, Chu Fengmian was barely able to borrow the power of heaven and earth, but this old man had reached a level of control. This kind of power was unrivaled even in the land of true emperors. A fourth or even a fifth tribulation true emperor. Chu Fengmian's eyes were fearless. True emperors had 9 tribulations in total. After each level, they would have to face a new tribulation. Only those who could overcome each tribulation could continue on their path. Chu Fengmian could still fight against emperors under the 3rd tribulation. However, those at the 4th or even 5th tribulation were far stronger than him. Unless he took another step forward or even reached the emperor realm, he wouldn't be able to fight against them. Fortunately, the old man before him was only an incarnation and not his actual body. If his true body had come, Chu Fengyan would have left without any hesitation. But now it was different. If Chu Fengyan could devour the avatar of a 4-tribulation or even a 5-tribulation true emperor, then his control over the power of the world would take another step forward. Moreover, this was the world of blood. Kid, my Sun clan is the only noble bloodline in this world. We are the rulers of all heavens, and no one can insult us. Today, you dare to insult the bloodline of the Sun clan? No one can save you. The old man glared at Chu Fengyan and said coldly, as an emperor, even an avatar of his contained incredible power. To him, crushing everyone present was as easy as waving his hand. The moment he spoke, the surrounding space froze. It wasn't some secret technique, but rather his control over the world. With a wave of his hand, he was able to do all of this. This was the terror of a true emperor. Quasi-emperors could barely do this with a secret art, but for a true emperor, it was as simple as drinking water. This spatial lockdown wasn't any weaker than Chu Fengyan's Tianlong transformation. Kneel and accept your death. The old man approached Chu Fengyan with a monstrous aura. Each of his words represented the truth of heaven and earth. No one could resist. Old man, do you really think this avatar of yours can deal with me? I might be a bit wary if your true body came, but this avatar, I'll kill it today and refine it. It just so happens that I still lack the laws of heaven and earth, so I'll use this avatar to make up for it. Chu Fengyan looked at the old man and suddenly laughed. This old man regarded Chu Fengyan as an ant, a piece of meat on a cutting board. How could Chu Fengyan not be an ant? Those below the Emperor realm valued strength the most, while those below the Emperor realm valued control over the laws of heaven and earth. No matter how strong a person was, how could they be stronger than heaven and earth? Controlling the laws of heaven and earth and using the power of the heavens to fight was the most powerful method. This was the difference between a true emperor and a quasi-emperor. Killing this avatar of yours is enough to make you lose the fruits of your hard work for 1,000 years. Since you've come knocking on my door, I won't be polite. Heaven and earth claw. Chu Fengyan took a step forward, not caring about the old man's aura. He suddenly attacked. An enormous dragon claw was formed, containing the most ancient power. It soared into the sky and slammed toward the old man. Roar. Chapter 1167. In the blink of an eye, the dragons danced and roared madly at the old man. They used their bodies to slam into the old man's body. The dance of the dragons was only the prelude. The claw that followed was the truly terrifying claw, even though it was the same attack, the old man's claw. However, this old man's claw was countless times more terrifying than the one Chu Fengyan had used to defeat Sun Yang. When Chu Fengyan was dealing with Sun Yang, Chu Fengyan had only used 30% of his strength. However, this claw attack was unleashed with Chu Fengyan's full strength. What is this? Progenitor Tianlong's heaven-tearing secret art? You can control it? The old man's eyes were filled with astonishment. In the ancient monster continent, there were very few existences with the bloodline of progenitor Tianlong. Moreover, even someone with the bloodline of progenitor Tianlong might not be able to comprehend this move. However, after a brief moment of shock, a cold smile appeared in the old man's eyes. So what if you have the bloodline of progenitor Tianlong? Your cultivation is only that of an ant. Even if your bloodline is strong, you're still just a slightly stronger ant. I can kill you as easily as crushing an ant. Heaven and earth universe. Hegemon of the world. All of a sudden, the old man's body moved. Waves of domineering energy burst out from the old man's body. Under this aura, the old man's body became incomparably tall and big. It was as if he didn't care about anything else. It was an absolute domineering aura. Boom! Layers of domineering aura erupted and turned into a gigantic fist. It headed straight for Chu Fengyan without any hesitation. A thunderous punch came crashing down, intending to kill Chu Fengyan directly. Nothing in the world could withstand the force of his punch. The Tao of a Tyrant. He's Sun Ba. He's a terrifying existence in the supreme elder group of the Sun Clan, a five-tribulation true emperor who has undergone 5 tribulations. Jin Yuan exclaimed in shock when he saw this. This move was Sun Ba's signature move. It was also his most terrifying move. After using this move, Jin Yuan immediately recognized Sun Ba's identity. Oh, 5 tribulation true emperor? The way of the overlord. Interesting. Chu Fumian stared at Sun Ba and suddenly laughed. Unfortunately, what you've come with today is only a clone. Regardless of how powerful a clone might be, I will not place you in my eyes. Really? Even if it's only one incarnation, the majesty of a venerable sovereign is not something you can contend against. Sun Ba sneered at Chu Fumian's words. As he spoke, the power of the sky and earth shrouded the area. The world of fresh blood seemed to be under Sun Ba's control. As he pointed his finger, the power of the world transformed into layers of cages that suppressed Chu Fumian from all directions. You want to use the power of the world to deal with me in this world of blood. Chu Fumian's expression suddenly changed when he saw Sun Ba's actions. A power that could engulf the heavens and earth slowly surged from his body. Crack! After feeling this aura, the suppression of the world on Chu Fumian disappeared in an instant. Instead, it directly bombarded Sun Ba. This world of blood was created by the heaven-devouring beast. Now that Chu Fumian had inherited the bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast, he could be considered as half the master of this world. So what if Sun Ba was a 5 tribulation true emperor? In this world of blood, the one who truly controlled it was still Chu Fumian. Suppress. Chu Fumian coldly said and pointed his finger. Boundless power of the universe immediately pressed down on Sun Ba, slamming into his body. The power of the world? You haven't reached the Emperor realm yet. How can you control the power of the world? Sun Ba's tone could not hide his shock. The power of heaven and earth was a power that only sovereigns could control. Even if Chu Fumian used the power of heaven and earth, it would be impossible for him to control it more mysteriously. But now, it was Chu Fumian who was controlling this part of the world and using the power of this part of the world to suppress him. This was something he had never imagined, even in his wildest dreams. Sun Ba didn't choose to give up when he spoke. He pushed his world principles to the extreme and shrouded the surrounding space as if he was controlling this world again. It's useless. In this world of blood, I am the only master. Chu Fumian saw Sun Ba's actions and revealed a disdainful smile in his eyes. At the same time, his tone was extremely cold. I've said it before. Today, this incarnation of yours will definitely stay here. Heaven-devouring secret technique. Sun Ba's figure had already been compressed countless times under the suppression of the world of fresh blood. His current strength had reached its weakest point. At this moment, Chu Fumian suddenly used the sky-devouring secret technique. A huge vortex appeared in front of Sun Ba and enveloped him. The huge suction force directly devoured Sun Ba. Boom! Boom! After being swallowed into the vortex, Sun Ba erupted with endless power and kept bombarding it, but his power was mercilessly devoured by the vortex. If Sun Ba's true body had come, Chu Fumian might not have been able to trap Sun Ba. However, Sun Ba was only an avatar. With Chu Fumian's sky-devouring mystic technique, suppressing Sun Ba was a piece of cake. Don't make a futile struggle. Devour. Boom! Sun Ba, who was in the heaven-devouring secret technique, suddenly exploded. A jade talisman was the first to explode. This jade talisman was the medium for Sun Ba's incarnation to descend. Now that the jade talisman was destroyed, Sun Ba's body was constantly shaking and then shattering. Rays of light flew out from his body, as if he was trying to escape. Chu Fumian knew that these streams of light were none other than the world principles. Since Sun Ba's incarnation had the power to control the world principles, it also meant that he contained the world principles. The world principles were the key to breaking through to the Emperor realm. Of course, Chu Fumian would not let it go. Break! Chu Fumian shouted coldly. At the same time, he blasted the world principles with his palm. These world principles were immediately shattered by the power of Chu Fengmian's palm. Then, Chu Fengmian used the heaven-devouring secret technique and swallowed the world principles into his body. They were refined by Chu Fengmian in an instant. Chapter 1168. In the blink of an eye, Chu Fengmian shattered these worldly laws and devoured them into his body. The heaven-devouring secret art was said to be able to devour all things in the world. Even Chu Fengmian's heaven-devouring secret art was far from reaching this level. However, devouring some worldly laws was still a piece of cake for him. The laws of heaven and earth were swallowed into Chu Fengmian's body. There was almost no need to refine them as they began to integrate into Chu Fengmian's body. Even though they didn't increase Chu Fengmian's power, they allowed his control over the power of the world to take a step further. The higher the realm, the more important the power of the world became. For example, Chu Fengmian was able to easily kill Sun Ba's clone by relying on the power of the world. However, he was able to mobilize the power of the world because of his heaven-devouring beast bloodline. Once Chu Fengmian left the world of blood, he wouldn't be able to do this. Therefore, even if Chu Fengmian was at the true emperor level, he would still be at a disadvantage if he didn't comprehend the worldly laws. After all, if Chu Fengmian wanted to fight against a true emperor, he would have to fight against the heavens. It wasn't that he couldn't break through the laws, but it was still very troublesome. However, Chu Fengmian had profited greatly from killing Sun Ba's clone this time. Even though Sun Ba was only a clone, the worldly laws in his body were no less than all of the worldly laws in a three-tribulation true emperor. It could be said that Chu Fengmian's benefits after fusing these laws into his body were no less than killing a three-tribulation true emperor. Whatever Chu Fengmian lacked, Sun Ba would give it to him. By integrating Sun Ba's worldly laws into Chu Fengmian's body, even if Chu Fengmian encountered some sovereigns in the future, he wouldn't be unable to compete with them. It's a pity that it's still too little. It's still far from enough for me to comprehend the emperor realm. Chu Fengmian felt a little and sighed. If Sun Ba's worldly laws were given to Jin Yuan and the others, it would be enough for them to break through to the emperor realm. But for Chu Fengmian, it was still too little. Every time Chu Fengmian made a breakthrough, he would need thousands or even tens of thousands of times more than what he would normally need. This strand of worldly laws was indeed too little for Chu Fengmian's breakthrough. It was like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. However, Chu Fengmian's current cultivation base was merely at the celestial realm. There was still a considerable distance between him and the ninth step of the life and death steps, the immortal realm. As for comprehending the emperor realm, that was an even more distant matter. The Supreme Elder's incarnation was suppressed just like that. At the moment when Sun Ba was suppressed, the entire place fell silent. This was especially true for Sun Yang, whose complexion was incomparably pale. Sun Ba's clone was Sun Yang's most reliable trump card. In his opinion, there shouldn't be anyone who could defeat Sun Ba's clone. Sun Ba was a five-tribulation true emperor. His avatar was comparable to a three-tribulation true emperor. A three-tribulation true emperor could do whatever he wanted in the demon ancient continent outside of the old geezers. In his mind, dealing with Chu Fengmian, who was only at the celestial realm, was a piece of cake. Who would have thought that he would end up like this? Chu Fengmian, young noble Chu, I am willing to serve you as my master and even help you deal with the Sun clan, as long as you spare my life. Sun Yang looked at Chu Fengmian and hurriedly knelt on the ground, trembling as he spoke. He didn't want to die. He would rather betray the Sun clan than die. You want to help me deal with the Sun clan? Chu Fengmian muttered to himself after hearing this. His eyes seemed to be contemplating something. Yes, I have a very high status in the Sun clan and know many of their secrets. Young noble Chu, don't you want to deal with them? I can tell you all of their weaknesses. Sun Yang hurriedly spoke after hearing this, afraid that Chu Fengmian wouldn't believe him. However, before he could finish his words, a dragon claw mercilessly smashed downwards, directly shattering Sun Yang's body. Master, this is... Jin Yuan and Qing Song couldn't help but exclaim when they saw Sun Yang being blasted to death. They could naturally see that Sun Yang wasn't pretending to submit. He was truly scared out of his wits. Even if Chu Fengmian asked him to open his mind, Sun Yang would do so. The people of the Sun clan aren't worthy of being my slave. Chu Fengmian coldly spoke with an indescribable disgust in his eyes. If Sun Yang had some backbone and would rather die than submit, Chu Fengmian would have a higher opinion of him. However, in order to drag out an ignoble existence, Sun Yang actually betrayed his clan. This kind of person was what Chu Fengmian despised the most. So what if he could help Chu Fengmian? If Chu Fengmian wanted to deal with someone, he didn't need anyone's help. As for the Sun clan, Chu Fengmian would flatten them with his own strength. Blood Demon Sovereign, do you still want to resist? After killing Sun Yang, Chu Fengmian looked at the Blood Demon Sovereign. The current Blood Demon Sovereign was no longer as arrogant as before. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked at Chu Fengmian. He wouldn't dare to attack Chu Fengmian even if Chu Fengmian just stood there. A 5 true Emperor's incarnation was easily defeated by Chu Fengmian. How could he dare to oppose Chu Fengmian? Young noble Chu, please spare my life. I am willing to submit. The Blood Demon Supremacy looked at Chu Fengmian and knelt down before him as he spoke respectfully. Very well, open your mind. Chu Fengmian flatly said. Yes. The Blood Demon Sovereign didn't hesitate to open his mind after hearing Chu Fengmian's words. As soon as he opened his mind, a black imprint was sent into the mind of the Blood Demon Supremacy. His life no longer belonged to him, but to Chu Fengmian. As long as Chu Fengmian was willing, he could kill the Blood Demon Sovereign at any time. The Blood Demon Sovereign was aware of this, but he had no other choice in order to survive. Blood Demon Sovereign, kill everyone who witnessed this. Chu Fengmian directly ordered after subduing the Blood Demon Sovereign. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Chu Fengmian had the bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast and was strong enough to fight against a 3-tribulation true emperor. He didn't want to reveal this yet. These were Chu Fengmian's trump cards. If too many of them were exposed, it would be a huge problem. Sun Ba's appearance meant that there were even more powerful experts in the ancient monster continent. They were just hiding in the dark. Chu Fengmian couldn't be too arrogant before he was strong enough. Understood. The Blood Demon Sovereign sneered after hearing Chu Fengmian's order. Killing was his favorite pastime. As a beam of bloody light shot out, miserable shrieks rang out. Chapter 1169. Hearing the screams, Chu Fengmian's heart remained calm. Those killed cultivators had gathered to take the opportunity to deal with Chu Fengmian and gain some benefits. If Chu Fengmian fell into their hands, he would suffer a fate worse than death. They had only themselves to blame for their deaths. Chu Fengmian was not a kind person. If he let those people go, it would be extremely dangerous for him. So now, none of them could be left alive. They all had to die. Chu Fengmian's spiritual sense shrouded the entire blood world. Chu Fengmian's heaven-devouring beast bloodline had a unique connection with the blood world, so Chu Fengmian could use his spiritual sense to envelop the blood world at any time. No cultivator could escape from the range of Chu Fengmian's spiritual sense. In this blood world, Chu Fengmian was the supreme master. In the blood world, I should be able to fight even a 3rd tribulation quasi-emperor. But if I leave, I can at most deal with a 2nd tribulation quasi-emperor. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Only in this blood world could Chu Fengmian unleash his most powerful strength. The world of fresh blood was originally a supreme treasure. It could even be compared to an extreme immortal weapon. However, with Chu Fengmian's current strength, there was no way he could take this blood world away. The blood world was so big that only when Chu Fengmian stepped into the Emperor realm could he take it away. Fortunately, except for Chu Fengmian, who had inherited the heaven-devouring beast bloodline, no one else should be able to control the blood world. So even if the blood world was left here, it would not be a problem. As long as I step into the Emperor realm and control this blood world, I can really look down on the ancient monster continent. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. As long as Chu Fengmian stepped into the Emperor realm, he could really control this blood world. Chu Fengmian could not imagine how terrifying the power of such a huge world was. He did not know how many masters could be killed just by using the world principles. But for the current Chu Fengmian, he could only barely mobilize the power of the world principles in this blood world. Once he left the blood world, it would be meaningless. Strength. Chu Fengmian's current strength was not enough. Not only in the ancient monster continent, but also in the 9 domains, Chu Fengmian knew that there were venerable sovereigns in the 7 major sects. The 6 demonic sects have been lost for tens of thousands of years, and they still had quasi-emperors. The 7 great sects have been in control of the 9 domains for 10,000 years. With the resources of the 9 domains, it was impossible to say how many experts they had nurtured. In fact, those who had once besieged the Lord of the Sword, Dao, might still be alive. The Sword Dao Master wasn't just an Emperor Realm Master. He had already surpassed the Emperor Realm. Even Chu Fengmian didn't know what level the Sword Dao Master's strength had reached back then. But now, Chu Fengmian's strength had reached the Emperor Realm, but he was still far from the Master of Sword Dao in his memory. Master, all the cultivators and Yao gods in the myriad beast grotto have been killed. From afar, a blood-red light flew over. It was the blood demon sovereign. He looked at Chu Fengmian and said respectfully. Chu Fengmian's spiritual sense enveloped the area. There was no one else in the myriad beast grotto. Well done. Chu Fengmian nodded. Subduing the blood demon sovereign and the others had saved Chu Fengmian a lot of trouble. Quasi-emperors were not worth mentioning in front of Chu Fengmian, but for most people, they were already extremely terrifying existences. In the hearts of most people in the ancient monster continent, quasi-emperors were already the limit of experts. As for the real Emperor Realm Masters, they couldn't imagine anyone other than the 3 Yao gods. Hearing Chu Fengmian's praise, the blood demon sovereign was delighted. Although he had submitted to Chu Fengmian to save his life, Chu Fengmian's strength had indeed subdued him. Following Chu Fengmian had a bright future. By the way, Master, I found a corpse of the myriad beasts outside. What's your plan? The blood demon sovereign suddenly thought of something and asked. The corpse of the myriad beasts? Chu Fengmian suddenly thought of the scene where the myriad beasts fought against several quasi-emperors. It seemed that no matter how powerful the myriad beasts were, they couldn't resist the joint forces of countless quasi-emperors and died. Take me to have a look. Chu Fengmian thought for a moment and said. 2 escape lights, one in front and one behind, flew out of the myriad beast cavern. The blood continent was now a mess. In the countless battles, the ground was shattered, and the scene was tragic. On the bloody continent, a gigantic body was lying there. It was unknown how many wounds there were on this body. Even the bombardment of 1,000 or 10,000 Daos could not completely destroy this body. Myriad beasts. Chu Fengmian came out and looked at the fallen myriad beasts. He couldn't help but sigh. The myriad beast's life mission was to guard the treasure of the heaven-devouring beast, but he couldn't resist so many quasi-emperors with his own strength, so he died completely. The body of the myriad beast was stronger than any other demonic beast. If it was refining a spiritual weapon, Chu Fengmian's level was enough to refine a good heaven spiritual weapon. But now, Chu Fengmian didn't have such thoughts. Let's give him a proper burial. Chu Fengmian looked at the blood demon sovereign and said, the loyalty of the myriad beasts was worthy of Chu Fengmian's respect. Yes, the blood demon sovereign didn't hesitate. He accepted the order and flew down. Soon, he buried the myriad beasts on the blood continent. Not long after, Jin Yuan and Qing Song's injuries were completely healed. They stood respectfully in front of Chu Fengmian with the blood demon sovereign and the other 2. It's time to leave. Looking at the 3 quasi-emperors in front of him, Chu Fengmian sighed. Coming to the blood world this time was really beneficial to Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian hadn't entered the blood world, the 3 quasi-emperors in front of him would be extremely difficult to deal with. But now, they were all subdued by Chu Fengmian. Moreover, Chu Fengmian could upgrade his bloodline, break through his cultivation level, and obtain the bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast, becoming the ruler of the blood world. All of this had caused Chu Fengmian's strength to change dramatically. Ancient Snake Merchant Association. A trace of killing intent flashed across Chu Fengmian's eyes. He had many enemies now, but Chu Fengmian hated the Ancient Snake Merchant Association the most. It could be said that Chu Fumian didn't have any conflict with the ancient Snake Merchant Association. In fact, Chu Fumian had made a huge deal with them. But now, the ancient Snake Merchant Association wanted to deal with Chu Fumian. They sold the information of Chu Fumian to the Hidden Killer Society. Chapter 1170. Let's go. Chu Fumian waved his hand, and a crack appeared in front of him. He took a step into it, and Jin Yuan, Qing Song, and Blood Demon Reverend followed behind him and stepped into it. Now that Chu Fumian was the ruler of the Blood World, he could open a passage to the ancient monster continent at any time. As long as he was willing, he could return to the Blood World at any time. Jin Yuan, are there any hidden experts in the ancient Snake Merchant Guild? Chu Fumian looked at Jin Yuan next to him and suddenly asked, Know thyself and know thy enemy to be victorious in every battle. As experts of the 8 great clans, Chu Fumian and Jin Yuan should know the true strength of the ancient Snake Merchant Guild. The ancient Snake Merchant Guild actually belongs to the 8 great clans, but it seems to want to become independent right now. After all, it hasn't been around for long. Only the High Reverend Lu Daojun is a true emperor who broke through not long ago. Jin Yuan guessed that Chu Fumian wanted to deal with the ancient Snake Merchant Guild and told him the key points. However, the ancient Snake Merchant Guild has a close relationship with the 8 great clans. If Master wants to take action, you must be quick. If you delay, the experts of the 8 great clans will come. A one tribulation true emperor. Chu Fumian sneered after hearing this. A one tribulation true emperor was nothing in Chu Fumian's eyes. He could kill one with his full strength. Since the ancient Snake Merchant Guild didn't have any experts backing them, it was time for them to die. Since the ancient Snake Merchant Guild wanted to deal with them, Chu Fumian would make them pay the price. Whoosh! The 4 streaks of light left the world of fresh blood and returned to the imperial capital in the blink of an eye. Chu Fumian returned to the capital. With a glance, he saw the towering ancient Snake Merchant Association. The ancient Snake Merchant Association basically represented the heart of the capital. Today, it was time for it to be destroyed. Let's go destroy the ancient Snake Merchant Guild. Chu Fumian walked in front, while Jin Yuan, Qing Song, and the Blood Devil Reverend followed behind. They followed Chu Fumian into the ancient Snake Merchant Association. Chu Fumian couldn't be bothered to deal with the lower-level members of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce. Chu Fumian's figure flew directly to the 7th floor of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce. The place of the ancient Snake Merchant Association was densely packed with forbidding auras. These forbidding auras were enough to stop any boundary monarch from entering. Unfortunately, these restrictions were nothing in front of Chu Fumian. With a wave of his spiritual power, he enveloped Jin Yuan and the other 2 and stepped inside. None of the restrictive spells could detect Chu Fumian's presence. Chu Fumian was simply a fish in water in this ancient Snake Merchant Association. No one could stop him. At the highest level of the ancient Snake Merchant Guild, President Ouyang, the Great Highness, the Vice President of the Mahogany Chamber of Commerce, the Vice President of the Demon God, and the others were gathered together and chatting with one another. The people from the Hua clan and the Lei clan are still not paying. They're saying that the Secret Assassin Society hasn't succeeded yet. I think they're deliberately stalling for time. A gloomy man, the Vice President of Ghost Deity, said coldly. This time, the Secret Assassin Society has 3 kings of assassins in the bloody world. Killing Chu Fumian is not an easy task. How could they not succeed? I think it's the people from the Hua clan and the Lei clan who are deliberately not paying us. Not necessarily. Although our ancient Snake Merchant Association is independent, we still have connections with the 8 great sovereign clans. The people from the Hua clan and the Lei clan shouldn't go back on their word. The Vice President of the Mahogany Chamber of Commerce said slowly. It could be true. That kid Chu Fumian is still alive. Oh? Vice President of the Mahogany Chamber of Commerce. Do you think that kid can escape the pursuit of the 3 kings of assassins of the Secret Assassin Society? The Vice President of Ghost Deity sneered. Any one of the kings of assassins of the Secret Assassin Society can easily assassinate a boundary monarch. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake for them to deal with a kid? There's no need to argue. Let's first check whether that kid is dead or not. Then, we'll look for the Hua clan and the Lei clan to ask for our reward. A dignified voice came from the side. It was President Ouyang. Humph. This time, we've plotted to send that kid to the world of blood. He must die. Otherwise, if this matter spreads, it will be a great loss to the reputation of our ancient snake merchant association. Check? I don't think you need it. As soon as President Ouyang finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out. A voice suddenly echoed. This voice contained a violent spirit force, and all the restrictions in the area were shattered by this spirit force. The entire building of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association was shaken by this force and was on the verge of collapsing. Who's there? Who dares to barge into the Ancient Snake Merchant Association? The great exalted lord's eyes turned cold and suddenly clawed at Chu Fengmian. They didn't expect that the Ancient Snake Merchant Association would be attacked. The restrictions of the Ancient Snake Merchant Association were strong enough to resist a boundary monarch. Although they didn't know how Chu Fengmian got in, judging from his actions, he was obviously an enemy. How dare you? Don't you dare hurt my master. The moment the great exalted lord's claw was about to reach Chu Fengmian's body, three figures suddenly appeared behind Chu Fengmian and attacked together. Three different forces burst out at the same time and attacked the Great Highness at the same time. Crack! The great exalted lord's body was instantly shattered by the three forces. Countless cracks appeared on his body before it suddenly exploded and turned into a bloody mist that floated in the air. A quasi-emperor had been killed by this attack. At the same time, these three figures slowly appeared. Jin Yuan, Qingmu, Blood Demon Supremacy? When he saw the three figures clearly, President Ouyang was shocked. These three were all boundary monarch experts who had been famous for a long time, especially the Blood Demon Supremacy, who was an invincible boundary monarch. The three of them didn't have any relationship with each other, but today they came to the Ancient Snake Merchant Association together. Moreover, they didn't seem to have good intentions. Is there a misunderstanding between the three of you? Our Ancient Snake Merchant Association has never offended the three of you. President Ouyang was infuriated when he saw the great exalted lord being killed. However, he still pretended to be calm and said slowly, Chapter 1171. Compensation? There's no need for that. According to Master's orders, the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild no longer needs to exist from today onwards. The Blood Demon Supremacy said coldly after hearing President Ouyang's words. The Blood Demon Supremacy wasn't a good person. As a Lone Ranger, he didn't have much of a relationship with these factions. Even if the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild was destroyed, it didn't matter. After all, he had chosen to submit to Chu Fengmian, so he naturally had to do everything Chu Fengmian asked him to do. Everyone, kill yourselves. Of course, if you're not convinced, if so, you can give it a try. Ouyang Li originally wanted to continue the negotiation, but after hearing the Blood Demon Supremacy's words, he was instantly enraged. The Ancient Snake Merchant Guild's status in the Ancient Snake Empire was comparable to the 8 royal families. As the president of the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild, everyone had to treat him with respect. He had already planned to lower his head and negotiate, but the Blood Demon Supremacy didn't give him any face. Blood Demon Supremacy, don't go too far. Although you're strong, you should know that there are true emperors in our Ancient Snake Merchant Guild. So what if you're an invincible quasi-emperor? Do you really think that you can fight against a true emperor? Humph. The Blood Demon Supremacy didn't care about Ouyang Li's words. He waved his hand and killed a few of the consecrators beside him. He used his actions to show his thoughts. Qing Song, are you representing the Qing clan and going against the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild? Ouyang Li stared at Qing Song and suddenly said coldly. He and Pine Tree could be considered to have some friendship. Our Ancient Snake Merchant Guild has no enmity with the Qing clan. Ouyang Li, Qing Song, no longer belong to the Qing clan. I've joined a new master. If the master wants to destroy the Ancient Snake Merchant Guild, I'll naturally follow. Qing Song stared at Ouyang Li and said coldly, not to mention the fact that he and Ouyang Li did not have much of a friendship. Even if they did, Chu Fengmian's order was not something he could disobey. You've left the Qin clan? How is that possible? Ouyang Li couldn't help but tremble when he heard this. The Qin clan was one of the 8 great royal clans, and Qin Song had quite a high status in the Qin clan. At this moment, leaving the Qin clan was the most foolish thing to do. That's not right. Master, who is your master? Suddenly, Ouyang Li realized that both the blood demon venerate and the pine tree were talking about a mysterious master. Now that they had returned to attack the ancient Snake Merchant Association, it was all because of their master's orders. President Ouyang, long time no see. Don't you remember me? A loud laughter rang out. Qin Song and the other 2 hurriedly retreated to the side and respectfully welcomed the arrival of the voice. The instant he heard the voice, Ouyang Li's pupils abruptly shrank. An expression of disbelief appeared on his face. Chu Fengmian, you're still alive? Impossible. How could you possibly escape the pursuit of the 3 kings of assassins? Many experts from the ancient Serpent Chamber of Commerce were shocked when they saw Chu Fengmian appear. They were well aware that Chu Fengmian was being chased by the 3 kings of assassins. After all, the news of Chu Fengmian's whereabouts was released by the ancient Serpent Chamber of Commerce and sold to the Hidden Killer Society. Now that they saw Chu Fengmian standing there unscathed, it was simply beyond their imagination. Even Ouyang Li did not expect that the person who had arrived would be Chu Fengmian. Your Qin Song's master? How is this possible? The usual calmness on Ouyang Li's face completely changed. It became incomparably solemn. Qin Song, Jin Yuan, and the Blood Demon Venerate were all quasi-emperors. Moreover, the Blood Demon Venerate was an unrivaled quasi-emperor. When had he been subdued by someone? Furthermore, he was subdued by Chu Fengmian. Although Chu Fengmian's strength was much stronger than before, he was still only at the Empyrean realm. He had not even stepped into the immortal realm. How could he subdue a quasi-emperor? What's wrong? Everyone seems to be very surprised that I was able to leave the bloody world alive. Chu Fengmian looked at the astonished crowd and spoke calmly. There was only a cold smile in his eyes. Chu Fengmian, what are you trying to do by barging into the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce? Even if you're an honored guest of our ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce, you don't have the right to barge in. If you leave now, we can let bygones be bygones. The vice president of Redwood, who had spoken with Chu Fengmian before, stared at Chu Fengmian and slowly spoke. There may be some misunderstanding in this matter. You should stop today. Our ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce will give you a satisfactory answer. Stop. Hearing the vice president of Redwood's words, Chu Fengmian's eyes suddenly flashed with killing intent. Someone like you dares to order me around? Kneel down and speak. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed, and an incomparably powerful aura enveloped the vice president of Redwood. The moment the aura enveloped him, the vice president of Redwood felt an incomparably great pressure. His knees buckled, and he knelt on the ground. Chu Fengmian, the vice president of Redwood was forced to kneel on the ground, and his voice was filled with anger. The vice president of Redwood wanted to say something, but Chu Fengmian's eyes suddenly became incomparably cold. With a wave of his hand, the vice president of Redwood's body was directly crushed. Not only the vice president of Ghost God, but the vice president of Redwood was also killed by Chu Fengmian. Although their strength was nothing in the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce, they were still the upper echelons of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce. They represented the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce. Now that they were killed by Chu Fengmian, the anger in Ouyang Li's heart could no longer be contained. Chu Fengmian, you've gone too far. Ouyang Li sized up Chu Fengmian, and his heart was filled with fear. Previously, Chu Fengmian had been able to suppress Ouyang Li at any time. Now, Chu Fengmian's strength had far surpassed his. When Chu Fengmian attacked, just now, Ouyang Li did want to save the vice president of Redwood, but the pressure from Chu Fengmian's aura firmly suppressed him. Chu Fengmian's aura alone was enough to suppress him. Chu Fengmian's current strength had already surpassed his. We must invite the High Venerable here to deal with this brat. Ouyang Li's eyes flashed as he stared at Chu Fengmian. Their ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce still had a trump card. As long as the mysterious High Venerable came, dealing with Chu Fengmian wouldn't be a problem. After all, the High Venerable was a true emperor. No matter how strong Chu Fengmian was, he couldn't contend against a true emperor. Chu Fengmian, I don't think there's such a great feud between us. Don't you think you've gone too far today? Chapter 1172. No enmity? The corners of Chu Fengmian's mouth curled into a sneer. Do you think I don't know what you've done? The ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce must have released the news that the Hidden Killer Society got. What Hidden Killer Society? Chu Fengmian, don't slander us. Ouyang Li was shocked when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. Although he had guessed Chu Fengmian's intention, he did not expect Chu Fengmian to know about the Hidden Killer Society. Are you still trying to deny it? I'm not here to talk nonsense with you. From today onwards, the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce will disappear from the ancient Snake Empire. Chu Fengmian stared at Ouyang Li and sneered. You want the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce to disappear? It seems like you don't know where you are. Ouyang Li's eyes flickered as he saw a light coming from afar. Chu Fengmian, I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and submit to the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce, and we'll forgive you for what you did today. This is your only chance. The moment the streak of light rushed over, Ouyang Li's confidence was boosted. So what if Chu Fengmian was strong? The ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce was able to stand tall in the ancient Snake Empire, and no one dared to offend them because of the 8 great sovereign families. It was because of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce's strength. You're here? Since you're here, there's no need to hide. You must be the trump card of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce. Show yourself. Chu Fengmian's eyes suddenly turned cold as he attacked. He gathered spiritual energy above his head and turned it into a huge battle dragon claw, blasting it towards the sky. The moment the battle dragon claw tore through the sky, the space shook. A huge spiritual energy burst out and collided with the battle dragon claw in the sky. In the instant of the collision, a figure slowly appeared. This figure was a man with a long blade in his hand. His face was as firm as a knife, and his eyes were sharp. His every move contained supreme saber intent. He was many times more terrifying than the divine saber 5 ancestors that Chu Fengmian had seen before. A true emperor. This person must be the great deacon of the ancient Snake Chamber of Commerce, Lu Daojun. His body was full of majesty, but his expression was extremely ugly when he was struck by Chu Fengmian's claw. Xiao Chun was a bona fide quasi-emperor. To think that a peak heavenly realm little fellow saw through his figure and attacked with a claw. This was definitely not something to be embarrassed about. Great deacon. Ouyang Li said respectfully when he saw Lu Daojun appear. Great deacon, please kill him. Shut up. Lu said Daojun heard Lu said Taoist. Ouyang Li might be the president of the merchant group, but he was only a quasi-emperor. He was nothing before a true emperor like Lu Daojun. You and ours and ancient Snake Chamber, tease now. Ours? From now on, we will of course of you, tes ancestor, estes weses naus. TTs. Esta Lu Daojun looked at Chu Fengmian and suddenly said, Half-step sovereign? When this word was spoken, Ouyang Li's eyes revealed a somewhat fearful expression. Half-step sovereign wasn't a quasi-emperor. It was the name of a cultivator who had survived the true emperor's tribulation. These cultivators' cultivation might have dropped due to the true emperor's tribulation, but they were still far stronger than quasi-emperors. Lu Daojun could tell that Chu Fengmian wasn't an ordinary paramount realm cultivator. That claw attack alone wasn't something a quasi-emperor could deal with. Other than being a half-step sovereign, there was no other explanation for Chu Fengmian's strength. However, Chu Fengmian didn't feel disdain when he heard this. Half-step sovereigns were a bunch of losers who couldn't even survive a true emperor's tribulation. They were a bunch of trash. Chu Fengmian didn't put them in his eyes. However, Chu Fengmian was too lazy to explain. It was fine to let people guess. Nevertheless, Chu Fengmian had indeed survived a true emperor's tribulation, so he could be considered a half-step sovereign. As long as Chu Fengmian was strong enough, he wouldn't need to survive a true emperor's tribulation to reach the emperor realm in one leap. 2 quasi-emperors? Ents? You think they're enough to quell my anger? Chu Fengmian smirked after hearing Lu Daojuan's words. Not enough. Then what do you want as compensation? Wealth? Our ancient serpent merchant association is willing to give you a large amount of wealth. How about it? Lu Daojun stared at Chu Fengmian with a frown. If it were 3 quasi-emperors, Lu Daojun wouldn't put them in his eyes at all. After all, he could kill quasi-emperors as easily as slaughtering chickens. Even though he was only a one-tribulation true emperor, he was still an extremely powerful character in front of a quasi-emperor. However, a half-step sovereign was different. Half-step sovereigns had experienced a true emperor's tribulation before. Their strength had begun to shift towards that of a true emperor. Though not on the same level as true emperors, they still had a few tricks up their sleeves. Once a battle between sovereigns began, it would be earth-shattering. Even if one side was injured, the price they would have to pay to recover would be enormous. Even heaven-grade elixirs were of no use to sovereigns. Only divine elixirs could heal injuries. Lu Daojun wasn't willing to do anything unless he had no other choice. Unfortunately, this was only Lu Daojun's opinion. A one-tribulation true emperor was nothing in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Even though he wasn't in the blood world right now and didn't have the support of the worldly laws. Dealing with a one-tribulation true emperor was a piece of cake for Chu Fengmian. Plus, personally suppressing one was something he had always wanted to do. There is no need for compensation. I have already said that the Ancient Snake Merchant Association will be completely removed from the ancient monster continent today. Chu Fengmian said calmly, as if he was talking about a matter of course. Hearing this, Lu Daojuan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. In that case, do you really plan to completely fall out with our Ancient Snake Merchant Association? Lu Daojun unsheathed his saber. Chapter 1173. A tiger's roar came from a saber in Lu Daojuan's hand. The moment the saber came out of its sheath, a terrifying aura enveloped Lu Daojun. At first glance, the tiger formed by the blade looked no different from a real tiger. It was so lifelike that when it stared at Chu Fengmian, its eyes were filled with killing intent. Saber spirit. Chu Fengmian glanced at the tiger and muttered to himself. You know about a saber spirit? When Lu Daojun heard Chu Fengmian's words, he clasped his hands behind his back and spoke slowly. This saber spirit was refined from a half-step sovereign realm tiger spirit that I killed. Just this saber spirit alone is enough to deal with you. Lu Daojun sneered while looking at Chu Fengmian. Ha ha! Chu Fengmian suddenly burst into laughter after hearing Lu Daojun's words. Disdain could be seen in his eyes. And here I thought you had some ace up your sleeve. This little saber spirit is nothing. I can kill him as easily as flipping my hand. Old geezer, you're only a one-tribulation true emperor, yet you dare to be so arrogant? A half-step sovereign saber spirit was trash in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Remember, he had suppressed the avatar of Sun Ba, who was comparable to a three-tribulation true emperor. Not to mention this insignificant saber spirit. Even Lu Daojun, a one-tribulation true emperor, was nothing in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Killing him would be as easy as flipping his palm. When those words were spoken, Ouyang Li's expression froze. He didn't expect Li Qiye to be so arrogant in front of a true emperor. This was a character at the apex of the continent. All the great powers needed to win over him, not daring to provoke him. A one-tribulation true emperor was still very frightening. Lu Daojuan's blood rushed to his head after hearing this. His face turned red as if his lungs were about to explode from anger. He was a respected true emperor no matter where he went. He had never been called an old geezer by Chu Fengmian before. Brat, you're courting death. Lu Daojun was truly furious. He was worried about Chu Fengmian's strength and didn't want to fight him. But now, Chu Fengmian's words made him want to die from anger. Moreover, he was a quasi-emperor. How could he be so easily bullied? Saber ruler. The blade in Lu Daojuan's hand suddenly moved and slashed towards Chu Fengmian. Rumble. The numerous formations and restrictions in the Merchant Association were completely shattered by this attack. In the blink of an eye, a huge hole pierced through the entire association. This saber was at least 1,000,000 feet long. It was extremely sharp and could kill anyone who stood in its way. No one could stand in the face of this saber. Faintly, one could even sense the power of the world and the ultimate saber intent contained within this saber. This slash contained the full power of a true emperor. Taoist Lord didn't hold back at all when unleashing this attack. He had completely displayed the power of an emperor realm master. The moment the saber's power enveloped Chu Fengmian's head, the surrounding space was sealed. Under the laws of the world, the space around Chu Fengmian was completely sealed to prevent him from escaping. Facing this saber, Chu Fengmian could only face it head-on. There was no escape. However, Chu Fengmian had no intention of escaping. Come! Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with battle intent. The battle dragon bloodline in his body was boiling. Suddenly, the shadow of the soaring serpent condensed behind Chu Fengmian's back. The power of the soaring serpent in his bloodline erupted in an instant. The power of the soaring serpent, combined with the power of the titanic crescent divine light, instantly raised Chu Fengmian's cultivation to the peak of the immortal realm. Chu Fengmian's true strength surpassed countless quasi-emperors. His aura alone wasn't below Lu Daojuan's. "Break for me!" Chu Fengmian suddenly roared and blasted out a claw. Endless spiritual energy condensed in the air and transformed into a claw that tore the world apart. Boom! The laws of the world that sealed Chu Fengmian's space were all shattered by this claw. At the same time, the power of this claw blasted towards the saber. The two forces collided in the air. In an instant, the saber's power was completely shattered and turned into nothingness in the air. What kind of power is this? How is this possible? How can this person's strength be comparable to the Great Reverend? Countless cultivators of the ancient snake merchant guild widened their eyes when they saw the saber being shattered by the dragon claw. Lu Daojun was a true emperor. In their eyes, he was almost invincible. He was a terrifying figure who could kill countless quasi-emperors with a wave of his hand. But now, Chu Fengmian's strength wasn't below Lu Daojuan's. He was on the same level as Lu Daojun. How could they believe this? You're quite capable. Lu Daojuan's eyes flashed with surprise when his saber was shattered. He then sneered. Unfortunately, I only used 70% of my strength in that attack. You should be proud of your strength to be able to withstand this emperor's attack. Since you have some aptitude, I'll give you one last chance. Submit to me and join the ancient snake merchant guild. I can guide you to the emperor realm. Old man, are you dreaming? 70% of your strength? That's all there is to it. I only used 30% of my strength in that attack. Chu Fengmian sneered when he heard Lu Daojuan's words. If that's all you've got, then you're not qualified to be my opponent. Arrogant brat. Lu Daojuan's face suddenly changed. He couldn't hold back the murderous intent in his eyes anymore. He no longer hid his strength, and the saber spirit immediately merged with his saber. The saber spirit was the soul of Lu Daojuan's saber. With the saber spirit merged with his saber became much sharper than before. Blood willow fluttering. Just a moment ago, when Lu Daojun slashed out with his saber, it turned into thousands of blood shadows in the air. Each and every one of these blood shadows was different, and each contained a different saber art. They slashed at Chu Fengmian from all directions. You want to kill me with your strength? Chu Fengmian's face was still calm when he saw the blood shadows slashing towards him. Chapter 1174. Chu Fengmian stood at the same spot without moving. He suddenly made a grabbing motion with his hand, and a spiritual sword was condensed. Immediately, Chu Fengmian grasped it in his hand. The moment Chu Fengmian grasped the ancestral dragon supreme sword, a dragon's roar resounded. It turned into a long dragon and soared into the sky. Sword! After uttering the word, spirit energy condensed on the ancestral dragon supreme sword and formed a sword ray that soared into the sky. This sword beam was at least 100,000 feet long. As the sword beam swept through the air, the blood shadows that filled the sky were all shattered by this sword beam. One by one, the crimson shadows were swept away by the sword gleam and shattered into pieces. All of the sword gleams were shattered in an instant. Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword. This is the true power of the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword. It seems that only by reaching the Emperor realm can one exert the full power of the ancestral dragon's supreme sword. Under the support of the soaring serpent transformation, Chu Fumian's strength was no different from a real Emperor Realm Master. The moment he picked up the ancestral dragon's supreme sword again, Chu Fumian felt a completely different change. The power of the ancestral dragon on the sword was under his control. Chu Fumian had controlled the ancestral dragon's supreme sword for a long time. At this moment, he finally unleashed all of its power. What a terrifying sword ray! Even Lu Daojuan's eyes were filled with fear. The power of this sword ray was simply beyond his imagination. Even a true emperor might not be able to unleash such a terrifying sword ray. But you're too naive if you think you could destroy my blood shadows. Blood Tiger, come forth. Lu Daojun snorted coldly. The blood shadows that were shattered in the sky suddenly gathered together again. They gathered together in the sky and turned into a gigantic blood tiger. This blood tiger was Lu Daojun's saber spirit. As long as the saber spirit was present, even if the blade was broken countless times, it could still reform. Even if a master's body was shattered 1,000 times, as long as the heart was left, he could still be reborn. Tiger roar, mountain river. The blood tiger suddenly roared and rushed towards Chu Fumian. The roar was accompanied by sharp saber edges that reached a terrifying level. This blood tiger was condensed from countless saber wills. Its power had reached the pinnacle. It rushed towards Chu Fumian like a sky full of saber wills, intending to tear Chu Fumian's body to shreds. Sword break. Chu Fumian slashed his sword towards the blood tiger saber spirit. The saber spirit was directly shattered by this slash. But in the next moment, the saber spirit's body condensed again. Don't waste your energy, kid. My saber spirit is an immortal existence. You can kill it 1,000 times, or even 10,000 times, but it will still be meaningless. Lu Daojun stared at Chu Fumian and sneered. Moreover, your secret technique's time should be running out soon. Using the secret technique to forcefully activate the realm will eventually run out. How are you going to fight me when the secret technique's power runs out? Lu Daojun saw the source of Chu Fumian's power. It was the power of the soaring serpent transformation. However, the power of the soaring serpent transformation did not belong to Chu Fumian. It was still activated by Chu Fumian's secret technique. As long as he could delay until the soaring serpent transformation's power ran out, it would be easy for him to defeat Chu Fumian. Therefore, Lu Daojun was using his saber spirit to buy time for him. The saber spirit's existence was illusory. It was almost one with the surrounding space. Even if he could disperse it time and time again, it was almost impossible to kill it. Is that so? It's just a saber spirit. Do you really think that I can't kill it? Chu Fumian's heart skipped a beat when he heard Lu Daojun's words. While they were fighting, Chu Fumian also noticed that the saber spirit had become one with the surrounding space. His true body had always been hiding in the deepest part of the space. Even though Chu Fumian had killed the blood tiger, it was only a part of the saber spirit. Open. Chu Fumian's sword was suddenly enveloped by a strange power. The moment the sword was unleashed, the surrounding space seemed to have solidified. Solidified? Under the power of this sword, the blood tiger's saber spirit was frozen in the air. Then, wherever the sword passed, the blood tiger, the layers of space were all cut open. Tianlong transformation. With this strike, Chu Fumian had activated the power of primogenitor Tianlong to the extreme. The power of this strike was enough to cut open all kinds of space. The moment the layers of space were cut open, a golden figure suddenly appeared. The golden figure had the head of tiger. It was the saber spirit of the saber spirit. The saber spirit that had been hiding in the deepest part of the space was forced out by this strike. Oh no! Lu Daojuan's expression greatly changed the moment the saber spirit's true body appeared. It didn't matter how many times the blood tiger was killed outside, but this golden tiger head was the saber spirit's true body. Once it was killed, the saber spirit would be finished. The saber spirit was Lu Daojuan's strongest trump card. In the blink of an eye, his body moved. Saber lights blotted out the sky as they slashed towards Chu Fengyan. Above the blade light, there were even more terrifying laws of heaven and earth that shrouded Chu Fengyan. Worldly laws. Lu Daojun finally used the strongest trump card of a true emperor. He wanted to use his worldly laws to suppress Chu Fengyan. Worldly laws? Do you think you could do it? Chu Fengyan felt the pressure of the worldly laws and suddenly laughed out loud. Similarly, powerful laws of the heavens and earth burst out from his body. The laws of the heavens and earth took the shape of an ancient dragon. With a roar, he abruptly soared into the sky. Roar! Along with the dragon's roar, the worldly laws were all destroyed. How is this possible? Lu Daojuan's eyes were filled with disbelief when he saw the worldly laws being destroyed. The worldly laws were the final trump card of an emperor. Chu Fengyan's strength could be explained by his powerful secret technique. However, the worldly laws were the foundation of the emperor realm. Now, the worldly laws Chu Fengyan displayed were countless times stronger than his. How could he believe this? However, even if he couldn't believe it, his worldly laws were destroyed by Chu Fengyan's palm. At the same time, Chu Fengyan suddenly reached out and grabbed the golden tiger head in his hand. Chapter 1175. Saber invades the world. Lu Daojun looked at the golden tiger head in Chu Fengyan's hand and couldn't wait any longer. He suddenly attacked. With the long saber in his hand, he moved and slashed at Chu Fengyan. The saber spirit was Lu Daojuan's most precious treasure. It was the foundation of his power. The consequences would be unimaginable if Chu Fengyan were to kill it. This blade light directly slashed at Chu Fengyan's chest. At the same time, Daojun clawed at the saber spirit with his left hand, wanting to take it back. All struggles are futile. Chu Fengyan stood still and swung the ancestral dragon supreme sword. It turned into a dazzling ray and collided with the saber in the air. Under the sword light, Lu Daojuan's long saber was forced back. In terms of power, Chu Fengyan was even stronger than Daojun. Even a true emperor like him couldn't compete with Chu Fengyan. Devour. Chu Fengyan's palm suddenly tightened, and the golden tiger head in his hand was suddenly swallowed by a vortex. The tiger head's power was continuously refined in the whirlpool and gradually integrated into the divine tree. Damn it! Lu Daojuan's heart bled at the sight of this. The saber spirit was a treasure that he had spent countless spiritual weapons to refine. It was the source of his power. But now, Chu Fengyan had directly swallowed and refined it. His 1,000-year comeback was now all in vain. He had made a wedding dress for Chu Fengyan and helped Chu Fengyan succeed. What a powerful force. This saber spirit actually contains the laws of the universe. Lu Daojun really put in a lot of effort. He actually integrated the laws of the universe into this saber spirit. The divine tree continued to absorb the saber spirit's power into Chu Fengyan's body. Chu Fengyan's keen senses told him that this blade spirit actually contained the laws of heaven and earth. Evidently, when Lu Daojun had condensed the blade spirit, he had separated a portion of the laws of heaven and earth from his body and fused it with the blade spirit. What Chu Fengyan lacked the most right now was the laws of heaven and earth. Naturally, he wouldn't stand on ceremony. These laws of heaven and earth were all integrated into Chu Fengyan's body and completely refined. You and I cannot live under the same sky. Daojun glared at Chu Fengyan with bloodshot eyes, especially after seeing the saber spirit being refined by Chu Fengyan. The worldly laws he cultivated for 1,000 years were all integrated into the saber spirit. Now, Chu Fengyan had taken them all. Irreconcilable? You think you're qualified? Chu Fengyan laughed after hearing Daojun's words. Suddenly, he waved his hand and the world froze. At the same time, a monstrous aura from the heaven and earth pressed down on Daojun. Worldly laws. After absorbing the saber spirit's worldly laws, Chu Fengyan's control of the worldly laws improved. The worldly laws pressed down on Lu Daojuan's body. Suddenly, Lu Daojuan's body was under immense pressure. His face paled. He even spat out a mouthful of blood. Even with his full strength and channeling the laws of the heaven and earth to defend against it, he was still heavily injured by the pressure. This was the power of the laws. After absorbing the worldly laws of the saber spirit, Chu Fengmian's power had far surpassed Dao Jun's. He could easily suppress Dao Jun. Damn it, I can't accept this. I'm a true emperor. I passed the lightning tribulation. How can I die in your hands? Dao Jun stared at Chu Fengmian and roared crazily. Until his death, he still could not imagine that he would be defeated by Chu Fengmian. Defeated by a little fellow who, in his eyes, could not even be considered an ant. Dao Jun's spiritual energy continued to expand as he tried to resist. Go to hell. Chu Fengmian could not be bothered to waste his breath. His battle dragon claw descended from the sky and slammed into Lu Daojun's body, directly shattering his body. No! Lu Daojun could only let out a blood-curdling scream as his body was smashed into pieces by the battle dragon claw. There was nothing left of his body. There was only a golden light where he used to be. It was the worldly laws of Daojun. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and grabbed the worldly laws. He absorbed them into his body and refined them with the sky-devouring secret technique. Sky-devouring secret technique. Devour the heavens and earth. Refine the worldly laws. Chu Fengmian pushed the power of the sky-devouring beast bloodline to the extreme. The worldly laws on Dao Jun's body were stripped away and refined. Although Chu Fengmian had killed one of Sun Ba's clones and obtained a portion of the worldly laws, it was only from one of the clones. The worldly laws contained in it weren't complete. After killing Dao Jun, Chu Fengmian obtained all of the worldly laws on Dao Jun's body. Time to refine the laws. Chu Fengmian's eyes flashed with determination. He wanted to refine the laws. For a true emperor, the more laws they refined, the more powerful they would be. The laws on Sun Ba's body weren't enough for Chu Fengmian to refine. But after devouring Dao Jun's laws, Chu Fengmian's had reached a critical point. He wanted to refine the complete laws that truly belonged to him. Turn the pieces into the whole, condense the laws. All the nomological laws of heaven and earth within Chu Fengmian's body erupted and started to condense within his body. The laws began to fuse with Chu Fengmian's divine veins, becoming more and more tangible. These worldly laws did not belong to Chu Fengmian. Instead, he had plundered them from other people. Now, he was going to completely refine these worldly laws and integrate them into his divine veins, turning them into worldly laws that only belonged to Chu Fengmian. Rumble. Suddenly, the entire sky began to change color. A huge crack appeared in the sky. Above the crack, a 7-colored cloud shrouded the area. This is... Gold Ingot stared at the rainbow-colored clouds in the sky with a shocked expression on his face. The origin world. Master has opened the origin world. Master is refining the worldly laws. Blood Demon Sovereign, Pine Tree, and the others were shocked. They all knew about the rumor that if one wanted to step into the Emperor realm and become a true emperor, they would have to wait until the origin world. Outside of the lightning tribulation, there was another important matter. Refining one's own worldly laws. Even the weakest true emperor would have their own worldly laws. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.